Why are we having LGBT parades and stuff?
No. I'm asking you. I'm trying to pick your brain. I'm not debating you. I'm honestly just asking questions.
I'm just not seeing.
I'm not saying any definite statements. I'm trying to pick your brain and get you to talk a little bit. It's like you're shy or something.
I'm just trying to see where this is leading because you're.
I'm trying to talk. I'm not trying to debate, but if you ain't got nothing to say, because I don't want you to accuse me later. G-Man didn't let me talk. Wasn't allowed to say anything.
G-Man does. He lets people talk, doesn't he?
Clearly.
Yeah.
He's letting me talk right now.
Questions like this, it's trying to lead somewhere.
I can end the hangout right now and be satisfied with the Google Hangout. Honestly, I'm not trying to trap you or nothing like that. Trying to get you to talk a little bit. You know what I mean? You obviously believe there's nothing wrong with homosexuality. I do, because I'm looking at it through the eyes of God.
Penises are delicious.
So I'm assuming that you think it's okay because
that Ronaldo clunker guys is hilarious.
Through to a standard that I don't hold.
Right, you have a different standard than me. I understand that. Okay? I understand you got a different standard, so I'm trying to get you to talk about it and why you would fundamentally disagree with the way Christians look at this particular topic.
Well, I mean, I disagree because, like I said in the beginning, if you're trying to force someone to accept any viewpoint that they don't hold to, I find that immoral. And that's what I think that you're sort of trying to force homosexuals and bisexuals into.
So you believe in that people should just have the freedom to practice whatever kind of sexual practice they want to practice?
Consenting adults. Novel idea.
As long as it's between consenting parties, yes.
There we go.
Look at that.
True empiricism. You want to comment, or do you
trained him well?
That, or do you want to?
Well, I guess I can comment a little bit. I mean, I guess just kind of have a question.
Javier, I am your father.
The issue with homosexuality is it's okay because it's between two consenting adults.
Javier,
standard.
Your parents were nobody.
What does it say about incest? What if there's a father and a daughter that are of age and they both
God, do we really have to hear Ronnie talking about this?
I don't think that
this may be cathartic for him.
Consent.
It's making my anal sphincter do things I don't want it to do.
So, maybe he can elaborate a little bit further on what he means by consenting adults, because I think that, especially,
we do need to have Tommy's video he made to Ozzy.
Well, basically, yeah.
It makes it very difficult.
We need to get that queued up.
His standards, his
I will get that queued up.
Why he would believe that homosexuality is acceptable or okay in society. I think that no matter from what angle we're approaching from, we're going to be running into some theological issues or some very inconsistent positions. So go ahead and clarify a little further if you can.
Well, I mean, so consent, a person has to be able to have a informed consent of where another person is in a power figure or some other part of their life where, so you trying to say a father and a daughter. The father is a power figure and it automatically eschews consent of the parties where...
Oh, someone has a robust understanding of consent? What?
Really make their decision at that point if they're trying to go against a power figure.
Bonus points for excuse.
I don't think that really says anything.
It doesn't say. Oh, he doesn't know what the word excuse means. Damn it!
If you have like your squad leader trying to have you do something in any sexual contents, it's that power structure of where you can't fight against somebody that has power over you. You're forced.
Does no one understand the dynamics of the concept of consent anymore? Is that not a thing?
That's not a thing anymore.
Oh.
I don't really
It's
see
too
the point
complicated.
that doesn't deal with the issue of
Apparently.
incest. What does that do with
Is the properties of the dynamics of consent anything like the circumference of the diameter of pi?
And
Equally curious.
you can get around the issue
Well,
of power.
no
which is
being
stuck in
no
the situation
is like the
of
inner
incest
solipsism solace.
and power of, there
Well,
are
the
some
value of
fathers that don't
consent is
respect the
exactly
word of
equal
their
to 3,
father.
so
They
it's
don't
fine.
look at them as a power figure. They have no respect for them at all, but still may have a sexual attraction to their father.
If you have no respect for them, why would you have sex with
I don't see
them?
us really dealing with the issue of consent here.
That makes no fucking sense. Unless
Like I said,
unless they're
I don't
paying
think
you.
that there's really any way around it. I don't think
Like I
there's
wouldn't have sex with Mrs. Dragnut if I didn't
any sort of
respect her.
legitimate way to justify whether we're
I
going
mean,
to talk about
as Sparkle says, it's really easy to prove harm in
or
incest.
trying to justify it as well, two consenting adults.
They just don't get it at all.
Okay, yeah, no,
Okay.
he doesn't
So
get
I
it.
mean, in the moment you remove that power and you remove harm, because harm is a part of my morals. So like a brother-sister relationship, there was one that occurred in Germany, and they didn't know that they were brother and sister because they were both put up for adoption as children, and they came together, developed a relationship, and I really, in my thing, I don't see anything wrong with that. But if they knew that, hey, if we have a child, that child will be irreversibly harmed by the two of them conceiving that child, I don't think that they should. I don't think that should occur. As long as it's.
I didn't catch that last part. Can you repeat that last part you just said, please?
As long as it doesn't lead to a misinformed power dynamic, or that there's no harm, I really don't see the problems in my morals.
Well, I would just say utilizing harm also as a standard for morality, I don't think that necessarily gets us anywhere.
The fuck does that
either.
mean?
I mean,
Harm utilizing harm.
Before I get into that, can you clarify a little bit more what you mean?
The fuck
by
did you
harm?
just say?
I've been trying not to listen.
Harm would be going against the well-being of one of the actors. So when I'm saying the well-being, I mean you could have somebody that is into BDSM. I
feel Ronaldo Chunkers is like the real Tommy Hall.
Oh, I think he is. I know it's a sucker account because I banned him from
would
your.
not like that action done onto them. You should not do that action onto them.
I'm going to go to channel and see what this guy's all about.
Why should the person who inflicts the harm onto that individual care? What is his standard?
Oh, he's moving away from homosexuality.
Harm that he's inflicting onto another individual.
Meta ethics.
That's empathy.
What if a rapist
God.
wants to
Well, that's
rape
why there's rapists,
a
because
woman?
they lack empathy.
But that doesn't really deal with the problem there. It would be according to whose standard, right? Because if your standard,
It's not consenting adults if it's rape.
according to
Nope.
who?
See what he did?
Right now,
By
I'm discussing the
literal
matter with an atheist, so we got to deal with the issue of morality.
Took rape all the fuck out.
According to whose standard?
Took all that consent out.
When does it
True empiricism is
commit to this
totally
crime?
moving the goalposts right now.
Behave this way.
G-Man,
If a
G-Man's,
rapist
he hates
wants
that.
to have
Like,
sex,
look
just
at here.
satisfy his urges.
He
Yes,
hates it.
he's gonna
G-Man
hurt
hates when
person
people
who's
move the goalposts. He's going to say something right now because he sees and he hears true empiricism moving the goalposts. You just wait.
Ends before my nose.
No, I'm just asking you, under your position as an atheist, you have no objective framework. There is no intrinsic standard of morals. There is no right and wrong for every person, every individual. So if morality is going to be based according to the individual, why is it that the rapist should care about the harm that he's inflicting onto the other person?
What?
Well, it hurts, but this doesn't give us any sort of standard why it is wrong. It's simply, well, the person who is being raped prefers not to be raped and hurt because it is causing her discomfort. but the person who is doing the rape and committing the crime, what we would call a crime, is enjoying it. So why
for
does it
goodness
wrong for him to
sake.
do that action?
I'm gonna be fucking sick.
I don't even know where to go with you, so I'm gonna go join people who aren't moral monsters.
Okay, well, I'm just.
Yay!
You have joined the actual moral people. Thank you.
Nice.
I wasn't paying attention. What the fuck did he say?
Something about moral monsters by,
All right,
and then
folks.
left.
Let them know. Let them know I'm
Now
live.
the real hangout starts. Hats off to you, good sir.
That was
look
a
at
long
Holy.
game.
Look at what Holy typed in there.
I love the long game.
Like drag went live with the whole
All right,
chat.
now quickly.
I forgot what it was.
Good. Let me stop this shit
Everyone.
though.
But somebody in the live chat was mentioning the fact that we have prostates. They talked about this in my last.
This is comical.
Damn fucking straight, it's comical.
In that area or whatever, right?
That was great.
Oh god.
Oh, I'm banned for life.
Q-Man has me blocked. Then how was I able to comment? I think Teal. I don't know. I was getting confused here.
Okay.
I don't know.
It depends whether you're blocked on G Plus or blocked from the chat.
Oh
If
my
you're blocked
goodness.
from the chat only.
So if you are watching this, folks, that is how you play the long game. Thank you, Xavier. Thank you. Midnight, you suck for getting blocked too soon. You suck.
Okay, whoa.
I'm fucking with you.
Whoa.
Wait.
Okay, that was
Oh,
an
God.
accident.
Hangouts with cancer.
Oh yeah.
We invite the Holy Spackle. She may join depending on when she gets off. So I want to get this party started proper, folks. How about this? Instead of if we're going to put our homosexual and any LGBTQ individuals on the hot seat, how about we fucking let them introduce themselves and give us some type of idea of what's going on. And I'm gonna pick the guy with my two favorite colors in the world, blue and black. Foolionator, please introduce yourself.
Hey, my actual name's David. If you've seen me in Hangouts before, probably already know that. I am a homosexual. I've been married before, and it is not a choice to be a homosexual. So I spent 40 years of my whole life trying to prove that it was a choice, and the only person I was lying to was myself. So that's my introduction.
Oh wow. Okay. Oh, I forgot the hyper. How did I forget Heavy Holler?
Yeah,
I feel
heavy
so
holler in here, man.
I am so sorry. How the hell did I forget Heavy Holler?
Yeah.
Okay, we're gonna start this shit off right, folks. I apologize, Heavy Holler.
Can I ask David a question, please?
Yeah.
Right. What you just said there is disturbing because you felt as if you were having to live as you were not. What was it that made you feel that you had to do that? Was it the way you were brought up, or was it pressure from outside? I mean, what was it that made you feel?
It wasn't any one specific thing. That's the thing about it. It's like you look at society, and I saw all my friends getting married and having kids, and the irony is they all ended up getting divorced before me, and they all had problems with their marriages before I had problems with my marriage, and the divorce of my wife wasn't specifically very. We didn't break up over that specific issue. I mean, it was one of the issues, but it wasn't the only issue. So, there was a lot more going on that caused us to break up. Let me preface that. But you see them, and you see them hooking up and going on dates and having these relationships. You're like, why can't I just find someone I'm attracted to, and you're sitting there denying your attractions, because back in the 70s, it was a lot more taboo than it is right now.
Mm-hmm.
So, in the 80s, it was a little bit less taboo, but people were still getting their butt kicked for being gay back then. So you really didn't go around announcing it back then. And then in the 90s, it got a little bit looser. But that's in the 90s, I was a medic in the military. I was doing the same thing Drag was, but I was doing it about 10 years before he did it. So that was in the era of don't ask, don't tell. So again, there was that pressure of you don't get involved with anybody, you don't do it. So I was pretty much celibate for most of my adult life. I mean, I hooked up with a few girls here and there, but nothing big. Then I met my wife, and met her at work, and she had a great sense of humor. But she had baggage from her previous marriage, made her very toxic to me, and then there was a lot of other stuff that worked its way in there. And when I got done, I was like, you know what? I had admitted to her before we got married that I was bisexual. At the end of that, it kind of left a really sour taste in my mouth. The marriage did. And I just moved on from that point. I was like, you know what? I don't really have a desire to get involved in anything resembling marriage ever again, first of all, because I don't see any reason to get the state involved. And there were some other things that happened during our marriage that kind of I don't want to get into because it's kind of personal.
No, it's fine.
And yeah, it's kind of messy. It really is. But to suffice it to say, if you lie to yourself, you really can't be honest with anybody else.
Mm-hmm.
And that's the first step in a good relationship, is being honest.
Yeah.
I agree.
It's just sad that you had to go through that.
Yeah. Point of order. So, folks, if you are gay and you're watching, you are of the LGBTQ in some way, shape, or form, get your ass in here now. That is an order, because I want to hear from folks. I want you to come in, share what you feel comfortable with. This is not, oh, I think you're nasty and icky. As much as I've been around dudes, I've not had the taste for penis, unfortunately. So I am more interested in learning about the person. I recently, and I say recent, probably a year or two ago, learned that my brother was gay, and I helped raise a motherfucker. I changed his diapers, and we recently had a conversation about him figuring out that he was attracted to dudes, and he says it happened. He realized around 8 years old, and around that age, you're still trying to figure out a lot about the world. And it came to me as a shock, but it was around that time too. I started looking at young girls. So it is interesting to make those parallels. And I'll offer a funny story to kind of add some levity to the conversation, but then get Heavy Hauler and Atheist Ranger and a few others in. Xavier, you're going to have to take a step back, man, because you already said your piece over there in the think tank that is the G-Man Hangout. So my mother had a computer in the sunroom that she used to conduct her business on, and I used to conduct my business on there too, at looking at hentai. And so during that time frame, I knew how to, clear the cache and all that good stuff. Huh? Say again?
I need to know if it was yayo.
No, definitely not. No, negative, sir. Futanari. But there was an instance where my mother mentioned that she had found some gay porn. Well, it just so happened my uncle was living with us at the time. He's schizophrenic, and she kind of chalked it up to his schizophrenia. He's feeling weird things, so he doesn't know. So that's probably where it came from. And then as my little brother and I were having this conversation a few weekends ago, we were talking about growing up, during that time period, and I realized he was the one going on her computer looking up gay stuff. And then my mother had mistakenly blamed her brother for it, and we had a good laugh. And I had always wondered, if that was actually true. And so that question was, answered. So in a very humorous way, I connecting with my brother and understanding that there's nothing icky about him. He is just like me, except he's just attracted to dudes. So on that note, I want to get an atheist ranger since you don't come in my hangouts that often.
Yeah, well, most time when you have hangouts, it's kind of full. And I'm usually at work, actually. Yeah, as I said in the chat, I am bisexual. Unlike most bisexuals, actually, I do have a preference, that is women. But as far as my attraction to men, I actually started having those feelings in high school, actually, 8th grade to be specific. But I guess I stayed in the closet for quite a bit because I live in Vermont now, but I am originally from Delaware. And Delaware high schools, at least the high schools I went to and the schools I went to, were not that friendly to members of the LGBT community. I mean, there was one lesbian friend I had. She was in almost every class of mine, and she got picked on relentlessly. So that's why I probably stayed in the bisexual closet until I was about 20, 22, 23. And that's when I, came out to my sisters, came out to my family. And not surprisingly, they didn't have a problem with it.
Good.
And as far as to anyone, again, to G-Man's nonsense about how, sexuality is a choice, it's G-Man. I mean, I've said this once before in my own hangouts, and I'll say it again. It's getting to the point where G-Man is wrong about so many things. I'm not even going to say something's wrong anymore. I'm going to say it's G-Man.
Yeah, and so there's no wonder why there's not a huge amount of people rushing to join his hangouts. Like that's not a place for open ideas. As you see in his wonderful description, he's effectively filtered out all the naughty people who some have said mean things about him, and others have nothing to do with any of the vitriol that he receives, no matter how just it is. So on that note, I'm just going to go by my panel down here. So Heavy Hauler, sir. Tell us about yourself. How you doing?
Oh, I'm doing pretty good. Well, I've kind of shared about myself, I guess, off and on. You could say I was born gay. I mean, I was wanting to play around when I was 5 or 6 years old. I knew I was different from the get-go. I grew up in a trailer park in the South, of all places to be gay in. But I really wasn't picked on that much by the other guys because we kind of grew up around each other, and we became friends, and we'd known each other for years, so it wasn't that big of a deal. Sometimes at school somebody might say something, or somewhere else somebody might, but I was fortunate in that I've never been in any fights. No one ever jumped on me and tried to beat me up because they found out that I was gay or something. So I was fortunate in that, and ain't no telling why, but even growing up in my late teens, no big problems or anything. I really didn't come out or start doing anything until my early 20s. And after that, it was like, there wasn't much I wouldn't do, but like I said, I'd always known I was gay. I had no interest in girls at all, sexually anyway. Not really that much to tell. In my jobs, I've been pretty fortunate too that no one really said anything if they did know. I don't know, maybe it was just the way I acted or how I carried myself or presented myself. It's like someone could look at me and go, "You're gay," It's not like real obvious to a lot of people, but there are people that can really pick up on it. They don't have to be gay; they can just read people, and so they would see that, see that I was gay. And then I met my partner in the mid 80s. Yeah. And we had the tests for HIV and all that several times after we got together, before and after we got together. So we thought we was safe. And then years later, he came down bad, real sick. Come to find out, his lungs were filling up with fluid. He was full blown, didn't even know it. We had no clue what was going on because we thought we were safe from, because of the tests we had. But the tests back then weren't accurate. He passed away 3 years after we found out because they had to put him into a self-induced coma because his lungs were so full. But he passed away, and I was caring for him and trying to work. I went from like 200 something pounds down to about 150. I hadn't been tested yet, and it was right around the time he passed away when I finally broke down and got tested because I was afraid of what would happen with my insurance. But there again, I was very fortunate. My insurance handled my medications. I found groups or people that help people, trying to get the medications, because medications back then were like $3,000 a month for just two. So in a lot of ways, I went through a lot of shit, with being a positive. But in other ways, I've been very fortunate because I've not had any problem with it. I mean, geez, I'm like 200 something pounds, going to the gym now, and no problems with it at all. So my experience being gay has been overall been pretty good. No real complaints, well, except for losing my partner. I mean, that was terrible. But
I'm really sorry, Heavy.
Well, that was back in '97. So see, I've been HIV positive for what, 20 years? Most likely, I'm pretty sure longer. That we had it, we didn't even know it, even after the test. So I'm very fortunate. I really have.
It can't have been easy though, watching someone.
Yeah, he pretty much just what do they call it? Withered away. I mean, he was a big man too. I mean, he was like 6 foot something, about 200 and almost 300 pounds, solid. I mean, he was a whopper. But,
solid, huh?
But yeah, what they say about black men is true.
But I mean, Heavy, I am so sorry.
Well, it's been a long time, so it's easier to talk about,
Yeah.
But the one thing that really bothered me was he was always so much stronger than me, physically and mentally, and just in a lot of ways. Like he was the daddy of the relationship, you could say. And me, I never was real strong, but it hit him and just knocked his feet out from under him. And it was a shock to us both, that it happened like that. Other than that, like I said, I'm very fortunate, to have my health like I do, and getting assistance with my medications. And my worst problem is cholesterol. My doctor getting me to lose weight.
And people mithering you to go and build snowmen.
Huh?
I said, and people mithering you to go and build snowmen.
Oh, good night. I didn't catch that feeling.
You don't understand mithering. People nagging you to go and build snowmen.
Oh, I'm waiting for it to snow so I can do that.
I followed. I remember when HIV first started when people started to being sick in San Francisco. I remember before it had been identified as a virus. And I also remember that it was called HTLV3 at first. I remember the day that I heard it had been found that it was a virus, and that was a real wow moment. That we'd actually got to the bottom of it, because people were dropping like flies. And because within San Francisco, it was the gay community, a lot of people just didn't give a toss. They were quite happy to just ignore it. Oh, I'm not gay, I won't get it. And the big moment was Paul Michael Glazer. Remember? Paul Michael Glazer's wife got HIV from a blood transfusion after childbirth, and the child was positive as well. And that woke people up.
Well,
and also, I was going to put in something real quick. My partner, he worked for the Red Cross. And so that's how come, we had the test and we went through the Red Cross to get our test. Like I said, back then, they weren't as good as they are now, and they missed it. So we carried it for, there's no telling how long we had it before. But after several tests, we figured, okay, we're safe, and I already went over that. But he was telling me that when HIV started becoming more and more prevalent, and I'm pretty sure y'all heard about it, the blood supply became endangered. Like you said, she got it from transfusion. And then all of a sudden people start catching it from transfusions and blood products and things like that. And that was scary, because they had no real good way then to detect it. They thought they did, but no. I mean, it was horrible.
Well, I remember, like, the first time I heard about, like, AIDS, it was after my parents divorced, and my mom rented the Ryan White story, because that was when Ryan White was first diagnosed. They did the whole movie about him being diagnosed because he got it because he was a hemophiliac. And he needed the blood transfusions to stay alive, basically. And of course, back then, if you needed blood transfusions, you got it. It was almost inevitable that you were going to get a tainted blood supply at some point.
Yeah.
And they almost held back the research on it. It's I don't think they held it back, but they didn't really put the effort into it like they should have. Like, it wasn't treated as the pandemic it really was.
Yeah.
If they had, I think a lot of it could have been stopped. A lot of it could have been slowed down.
The spread could have been mitigated, but hold off on that stuff, guys. I'm gonna get into that. I put a kind of the order of operation, what I want to do in the side chat. It's okay. I just typed it up. So I want to move on to Midnight, then Nicola, and then maybe we might get to Xavier. I don't know. Maybe.
Gotcha.
Midnight. Is he there? Midnight. Okay. Nicola?
I don't know. There's not much that I haven't already said in other hangouts before. I grew up in the prairies in Canada, and people's sexuality isn't something that you really talk about, and it's also not, for the most part, a big deal. I did go to Catholic schools, and people were fine with it. The only trouble that I ever really had was I have some gay cousins who were ostracized from my family and completely cut off. It's like, to this day, I'm not told, not come out to my grandma. And I have no intention to either. I've been hiding that from that side of the family.
For fear of being ostracized?
Completely cut off. And, like, that family legit hates me already, and she is in declining health. And she, at Christmas, will just blatantly say in front of all my other cousins, like, oh, Nicola is my favorite grandson. And then just turn and stare at all of them.
Oh, wow.
So it's like, I genuinely don't want to upset her any. I don't want her health to decline. So I've just kept that away from her.
That's interesting. All right, what about you, Xavier? I guess we can get to you now. Is he AFK too?
No, I'm here.
Okay. I don't think you got a
different screen open.
Yeah, I don't think you had a did you even get a chance in his chat to actually introduce yourself? And did you?
No, I introduced myself in the beginning.
Oh, okay. Do it again.
So, I'm Xavier. I'm in the military. So thankfully now I'm allowed to be in the military. Although we'll see how long that lasts.
Well, you're allowed to tell.
Well, I mean, you could tell people before, you just couldn't get to your superiors. But I'm like, being in the military is what I'm doing for society. Sort of. But we're not doing our job anymore, really. And then misconceptions is I don't tell any of my family that lives in Pennsylvania. I can tell my dad's side down here, but my family up in Pennsylvania probably be just never spoken to again because they are like devout Catholics and they come from the part where if you're gay, yeah, they won't talk to you, they won't converse with you. They think they're gonna guide them away from Jesus. So
Okay. Yeah, that's a common sentiment from what I've kind of heard from a lot of people. For my little brother, and I hate to be sitting here speaking for him, but he really doesn't care too much. He let folks know on Facebook a picture of him kissing his then boyfriend, and he was like, you know what, I don't care who knows. And his biological father, my stepfather, really didn't take it too well. He's not a big Facebook guy, so he wouldn't express his dismay on Facebook. But he hasn't forbade him from talking to anyone. He's just not very accepting of it. But my mother, however, is going to love him. And my little brother did come out to my mother, and she gave him a hug and said that she still loves him and accepts him just the way. And she says the same thing to him that she says to me, that she's going to pray for him. Which is kind of a passive aggressive way of saying I want you to change to be like I want you to be, but not with not as much condescension. So you have to take what you can get. Yeah. So one of the things I wanted to get into, and Atheist Ranger, you said you had to kind of go soon. So yeah, what have you done for society? Because this question came up in G-Man's chat. What good does homosexuality do for society? And it's such a malformed question. Because you have people being able to commit acts of homosexuality, but then you have the loving relationship of two consenting adults who are just happen to be of the same sex. So you as a person who just so happens to be LGBTQ, what have you done for society? How have you benefited society?
He's a ranger.
Exactly, I'm a Power Ranger. No, I was just playing. Me personally, I'm kind of a loner actually in my personal life. So, but as for what I've done to society, no matter who I meet, I just try to make them smile. That's the best. That's the best answer I can really give. Whether it's a family member or a stranger off the street.
Have you had sex with any of your family? Because apparently that's important for this question.
Wait, he said that?
That's what I was asked before I left. It was a talk about incest.
No, that's just a slippery slope people like to use. But yeah, Drag, I do have to go. Thank you, and if you're still live in about an hour from now, I'll be happy to come back in.
Oh, sure. Yeah, knowing me, I'll probably still be live. Okay. Yeah, thank you for coming, man.
No problem. See you later.
Not a problem. Who just came in? Aravine Beauchamp.
Yes, hello.
How are you doing? You mind? Hi, introduce yourself. Yeah.
Oh, hello there. I'm Aravine Beauchamp, and I just so happen to. I don't know. How would I introduce myself?
Well, I mean, you could talk about your sexual orientation. Just give a brief little bit about yourself and your experiences being someone of the LGBTQ variety.
All right. Well, first off, I am transgender. I am legally female as of 2017. Sorry. I sexual orientation, I prefer men. I am attracted to the same transgender sex, so to speak.
Oh man. So is with that particular, I guess, preference, does that make, does it make like for slim pickings, or how is that panning out?
I'm very picky.
Yeah, I'd imagine the intricacies of that in the dating world make things a little bit more difficult when people are usually very much more picky than they need to be. But when you just so happen to be of that variety, and I'm trying to say, when you are a trans individual, that's what I was looking for. One of the things that I sometimes wonder, and I've had only limited experiences with trans individuals, is that oftentimes from the ones that I've known, that they prefer cisgendered people, and it's rare that they would prefer someone else who is trans. Have you experienced anything like that, or know people like that?
As a matter of fact, yes, I have. Numerous of people. I have over 35 transgender friends who are going from male to female and female to male, who actually are a variety of bisexual and gay, lesbian, and all that stuff.
And to kind of further expound, I actually kind of, after I got divorced, I kind of went and investigated, for lack of a better term, some, and I didn't actually experiment too deeply, but I got to know some people on a personal level, like as friends. And some of my friends that I met, like I knew a transsexual man who is still biologically a woman, or female rather. I don't want to say that woman. That's bad, David. Don't do that. But transgendered man and a transgendered woman who had not had any surgeries whatsoever.
You mean someone who is going from female to male?
Yes.
Okay.
So they were going female to male, and the other one was going male to female, and they were living as their gender of choice or gender preference. I know I'm being horrible with terms, and I apologize.
No, it's fine.
And they were actually discussing holding off a little bit because they were trying to conceive.
Okay, I see. I understand. Okay.
Which is why I was having a horrible time with those terms, because I was trying to explain it so that people could understand what was going on. We're talking about a guy, if you saw walking down the street, you would literally say, "Hey, dude, what's up?" Like, you would not be able to tell that that person could conceive a child.
Uh-huh.
So, yeah, there's that. That happens, people.
Yeah, mostly people who don't want, mostly people who want to conceive or have a biological child with, say, a sperm donor, and have someone carry their child. Yeah, someone who wants to conceive a child. It's basically they're not wanting to go on hormones just yet. So I would think that person is still in the process of deciding who they want to be.
Well, he was. And I mean, he was, but he was, they had met and they knew that they wanted to transition, but they also knew they wanted a child. And it was kind of like a big thing. And I'm not sure where they're at today because I haven't kept up with it. And I don't know exactly, I can't psychologically do that. I don't know where they are, where they were exactly at the time. It was kind of a, it was a private thing anyway. So it's hard to say where they were at or where they were going.
Totally understand. Totally understand. It is hard for someone such as myself to keep on trying to figure out who I want to be, what do I want to do, sexual stuff like that. Do I want to conceive? Do I not want to?
One of the things I did want to discuss here is some of the misconceptions that come along with people's orientation. Because oftentimes, and I know I heard this growing up, is that if you are bisexual, you're somehow more sexually promiscuous than someone who was, heterosexual. And sometimes it was even extended to just homosexuals. So I wanted to get you guys' experience. And I wanted to ask individually because some of you may be promiscuous, but is it attached to your orientation or just to your own personal sexual proclivities? So you can just chime in as you see fit.
Oh, when I was younger, I was very sexually active. And I'm thinking like, okay, if I had been straight, I'd probably be paying quite a few child support. I'd have a lot of kids somewhere. I mean, I was like, yeah.
I'm just trying to picture like a miniature Asian version of Heavy Hauler.
Well, you never know. I mean, I was just very sexually active. Of course, as I got older, that lessened, and then my partner and I got together, and it was just us. Of course, after that, there's very few people I've been with since she passed away. So I pretty much kind of withdrew from relationships or trying to get a relationship going. I'm kind of a hermit, I guess.
Okay. Well,
see, I was like the opposite. I'm a very shy person. I'm very careful about who I trust. And like I said, I had the issue with trying to be the social chameleon and do what everybody else was doing. So I was so busy trying to have a child with a woman and get married and conform to that social norm that I was repressing whatever I had. And yeah, I've had a few partners since then, but it's never been what I would call guys gone wild or anything like that.
Yeah, I think my partner and I were together for about 12 years, I think. But you're talking about you was married once. Okay, I had a real good friend years ago. He was a lot older than me at the time. He had got married because of for him it was like pressure from church he was going to and his family and stuff like that. Because all of his other friends, they were married and they were raising kids, so he got married, but he was gay. I mean, he knew he was, but he under pressure he got married, had four great kids, married a wonderful woman, and he loves them. He loved them dearly. He's long since passed away though, but it caused problems. Even though he did love his wife and his kids, but he also, being gay, he wanted to, enjoy the company of other men. Sometimes that would cause problems, not so much with his family, but with him, because he would feel very guilty because he's running around on his wife like he was.
Well,
and it was a situation that he I don't know if maybe you could say he was forced into it or he allowed himself to get into that situation. And there were a lot of men like that, and they're living kind of miserable lives because they gave in to societal pressures and got married.
It's a damned if you do and damned if you don't. If you don't screw around with your wife, my wife.
But I will say, yeah.
But it's not healthy to yourself. And the relationship is toxic on top of it. Yeah. So,
but the last I heard, he and his wife had still been together before he passed away. I'd lost touch with him because they moved out of town. But He did love his wife, though. He really did.
And that's fine if that relationship works. But if that relationship itself isn't working either, it's just you're in a place where it's just like me. It was like miserable. It was the last 6 years of my marriage it was not a marriage. It was my attempt at giving it my best shot one more time. That's all it was.
And then you hear about people, where couples or married couples with kids and grandkids or whatever, they finally end up being divorced because one or the other, is gay or lesbian, or something comes up and it comes out, and then you have everybody's lives are just ruined. I mean, for a while until they finally manage to get over it. I hate that men and women that are gay are pressured or feel like they have to do this. They have to get married. They have to hide what they really are. That's a horrible thing to go through. It really is.
Yeah, it's totally gay. Just
thank you, Saka, for that comic relief.
I was waiting for him to chime in. I saw him add himself, and I was like, "It's coming." There we go. What's going on, Saka Cal?
Hey, big boy.
Hey.
All right. So I want to get Let me look over here. So, Eravine, you spoke a little bit about your kind of your sexual proclivities a little bit. You mind expounding upon that? Since I think you are the only trans individual in here. Yeah, I think you're the only one, like except Saka.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, no, I prefer men. Sometimes even straight men tend to want to explore that sort of sexuality. So half the time when guys do ask this question, and I get that a lot. Do you have a penis? And I clearly say that sometimes on my bio whenever I'm on a dating site. It clearly says transgender, female to male, and I didn't have the surgery yet. So yeah, I get a lot of questions. Also, a lot of experiences as well, going out and about. If I'm not wearing makeup or anything like that, and you know what? People really do notice. People, especially the elderly people, especially men, they tend to just blurt out, "Are you a guy or are you a girl?" Now, see, I don't like those questions as much as I used to, but my point is that half the time I like to educate instead of standing my ground and standing up for myself. I like to educate those who don't know about the transgender community, and those who don't know about the transgender community, half the time they're not aware of it. They don't know that it exists. So when I hear about that, it's really sad for someone like me to have to explain everything that that these people don't know. I have numerous groups that I attend to that I like to share my story, share my friends' stories as well about what it means to be transgender, and how it is and how difficult it is to be in a society where straight people and most other people of different sexualities don't know what it's like to be someone like me.
So, would you say when you get those types of questions, are they receptive, to your attempts to educate them, or are they just kind of dismissive?
Not really. I engage a lot in conversation, even if it's in public and everyone can hear it. I tend to speak a little bit more louder than the person. But when I'm educating someone that doesn't know, I am very calm, very nice. And most people, I know this, most people are not very kind about it. They are really cruel and mean, which is unacceptable. So for people that look forward to educating, I suggest
Patience.
Patience. Try not to be more aggressive. It's more of a little bit of a heart to heart, and it's not that difficult to accept someone that is different as I am. More or less. That said, when men or women ask, do you have a penis? Well, you know what? I'll say that I am trying to get the surgery. It is very difficult to have the surgery. You have to go through many steps. Right now, I'm still stuck in between, getting myself better, going for my ultrasounds for my heart, trying to get my mental state and my weight and my eating disorder all in order. In order to get my surgery, I have to have all these things, 100%.
Right, and then that's for, I presume, your safety. Because I know when I had even my colonoscopy, they had to make sure that there was no issues with the anesthesia, and because I have I forget what it's called. I have a regular heartbeat, but it's a variant basically of a regular heartbeat. But they had to make sure. Say it again. Say it again.
Arrhythmia?
Oh,
Yeah.
sorry.
Yeah, AFib. Yeah, they had to make sure it was within a certain range, and that sort of thing. So, and I'm glad those types of barriers exist. Just to make sure that nothing goes awry in that process, because you want to be as smooth as possible. And Jade is coming in, by the way, folks. She may not have been on G Plus, but I saw that she was on Facebook. So Jade is coming, because we can't have this conversation without Jade. Because again, sage advice since Hawkeye's not here.
Well, another thing too is not only is it just the danger of surgery, you're changing your body physically, how it operates after the surgery.
Okay, I have a little bit to say upon that.
Well, depending on which direction you're going.
I'm going from male to female, so
Okay.
The surgery is a little bit more very difficult, and if things don't go right with the transition surgery, then I could not feel anything down there. If there's like too much stress, if there's too much, if nothing is healthy, and if I'm not my therapist had said that she wanted to make sure I have good weight, and I'm in good place. My body is healthy. Unfortunately, I would like to mention about the heart thing. I have been recently diagnosed with a heart murmur, and unfortunately, my coverage won't cover the medication for it. So I have to be very, very careful with how I deal with things in a daily situation in terms of anxiety for the most part. And more or less that can very much affect the surgery as well.
I want to get Jade in here. Jade, most people know you already, because you've been here forever, ever since there was a YouTube. But anyway, I want to get you in introduction of yourself and you coming into your sexuality, understanding it, because you are, I believe, demisexual, if I'm not mistaken. Okay.
Yes. Yeah. Well, I'm a lesbian, but I'm demisexual.
Okay.
Right.
Good. Yeah. Could you also explain that for the audience too?
Right. Right. Okay. Well, of course, I'm a homosexual, which means I am attracted sexually and romantically to the opposite sex. People who are demisexual tend to not have a sexual attraction to someone until after they've gotten to know them. In other words, a relationship develops first, friendship, then maybe a romantic relationship, and then before any sexual attraction happens. So I don't like go around lusting after people. I'm sort of what you would call on a day-to-day basis asexual. Because nothing happens. I have to know someone first. That's what demisexual means, basically. Breaking up a bit. How badly am I breaking up?
It's kind of bad. Is your bandwidth turned all the way
Okay,
down?
let me come back in.
Okay.
No, I can't do that. I'm afraid I'm kind of, yeah. Let me just, they need to come back in.
Oh, she's getting good.
She needs a new potato.
You seem so excited there. Oh, it's just Jake's talking about sex again.
Of course. All right. Sound sets.
Okay.
Say something?
Jade, I didn't hear
Can
what
you
you
hear me
call
now?
yourself sexual. Yeah, but can you repeat what you call yourself? Because you were breaking up, so it was kind of hard to hear.
Okay. It's demisexual, D-E-M-I, sexual.
Thank you.
That's people who don't tend to have a sexual attraction to someone after they've gotten to them and developed a friendship, and then usually a friendship, and then a romantic attraction before there's any sexual attraction.
I thought it was somebody who was sexually attracted to Demi Moore after Striptease.
Nah,
That was a
no.
great movie.
Sorry.
Oh, sorry. My bad.
That's okay. No, so yeah, that's me. So as for coming into my sexuality, I think being demisexual made it a little bit more confusing because as you know, in high school when people were having their attractions and being and dating and things like that, I just wasn't that interested. I used to be interested. You know, it's very confusing because, you know, everybody else is doing this. So I'm thinking, oh, I need to, you know, get the standard thing. I need to get a boyfriend because that's what you're supposed to do. I just wasn't that interested. After I graduated from high school and I went to college, it was really more after college, but I got very involved. I was involved in the peace movement in college, and I got involved in the women's movement in this is the 1970s, folks. This is second generation feminism. I got involved in the women's movement. And from the women's movement, I met a lot of lesbian feminists. And I can't tell you exactly what happened, but it's sort of the light bulb eventually started to, you know, it's like, you know how you have a dimmer switch and
They got you.
yeah, not only could, yeah, it's so slowly over, I was going, oh yeah, okay, this makes sense. But then again, I wasn't, you know, like, there are always these really terrific women around. I can, you know, remember, you know, almost each and every one of them, like lusting after anyone or necessarily wanting to jump into bed with them, and goes for them too. I think that there's this misunderstanding about sexuality, especially, you know, homosexuality, but also heterosexuality. You don't want to sleep with everyone you meet, you know? It's like I could be in a group of lesbians and I could find them all very attractive. So I don't want to, I'm not sexually attractive, doesn't mean that I don't see their attractiveness, that, you know, they're terrific people, the intellectual, social connection there, you know, but see them jumping into bed with each other. You know what I mean? It's just, it's just like anybody else. You know, heterosexual men don't want to sleep with every woman they meet. Heterosexual women don't want to sleep with every man they meet. And it's just the same with every, you know, with homosexuals. I think the emphasis on sex is way overblown. But that's what happens with these, you know, with these fundies. Their focus isn't on the relationship between people or the attraction between people. It's on sex, 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 sex. They are more obsessed with homosexual sex, especially male homosexual sex, and especially anal sex. Sexual men I've met. It's really interesting to me. Their obsession with sex. Relationship. It doesn't make a difference. Homosexual, heterosexual, you know, whatever. Yeah, the relationship between two people, the intimate relationship between two people. You're not having sex all the time. A relationship is far more complicated than that. There's so many. And of course, one of the jokes in the, well, there's two really big sort of jokes in the lesbian world. One is, you know what a lesbian takes on a second date?
U-Haul.
Right. And that's because women are nesters by nature. And so, you know, a woman meets someone and all of a sudden they're planning their future together. Well, it's not really a joke, but it's what's really sort of a joke. It's something called lesbian bed death. I don't know if you've ever heard of this. When two women are together for a long time, sex kind of goes away. Not all the time, but sometimes. So that's what's called lesbian bed death. And so if women don't make an effort to continue to have a sexual relationship, things and you know, the sex may just disappear. The thing is, a lot of women are fine with this because the relationship is more than just sex. The relationship is every little thing, you know, from waking up next to someone in the morning to coffee with them and smiling, laughing. You've got all your little jokes, all your little, you know, private messages that you send each other, even, you know, just the way you move, the way you talk, the way every little thing. It's, you know, it's everything you do together. It's one of the some see on, like, you know, gay lifestyle, you know, when people talk about your gay agenda, is, you know, people will write, says, yeah, well, let's see, my gay agenda consisted of, well, let's see, I took a shower, walked the dogs, went to the cleaners, went to work, had dinner with my parents. Oh yeah, that was my gay agenda for today. Because that is, you know, just a normal life. It's the obsession with sex that I just find utterly amazing. Oh, and even another thing about some gay men I want to talk about. This isn't all of them, of course. You'd have to have. No one can speak for all of anybody. You know, I certainly can't speak for all lesbians. You know, I definitely can't speak for all gay men, but I've known a lot of gay men. One of the things that happens sometimes with gay men, as I said, there's different attitudes towards sexuality between men and female. Is you'll have a couple of gay guys and they're together and they're in a deeply loving relationship. They have an arrangement where they can, you know, side occasionally. And they will often have rules to this, like you can't sleep with someone more than once or twice. You can't take them to our favorite places, you know, things like that. They'll have this arrangement. And some people find this just really strange. But the thing is, and there's this book that's, interestingly enough, it's a book that's used by Matt Slick to show how homosexuals are commit adultery, and, you know, all the time. Oh no, they're adulterous. They can't keep a relationship, and yet you know, Christians and heterosexuals you know, don't commit adultery. And he uses this book to as his proof. And I have the book. I read the book, and it's written by two sociologists, a gay male pair, and they make it very clear that it's not about everyone. It's a book they basically wrote about their friends. It's kind of a, you know, of their circle. Out that in the funny, they kind of laugh about this in the beginning. They say, well, of course, when you have two sociologists writing a book, you're going to end up with charts and graphs and things like that in it. And their point in the book is that to these men, and again, they're just talking about their circle, is the emotional relationship. To go outside the emotional relationship to these men would be considered adultery. Someone else is it's just sex. Not a big deal. Of course, that's not my attitude, but that's me. But it just, I don't know.
Yeah.
It's just the values that people put on things is what I'm going to say.
Yeah, the
I just love
emphasis
that.
I think. I'm sorry, Jay. I think when you talk about Matt Slick and G-Man and those guys, they think like all homosexuals cannot keep a relationship because they think everybody's created the same. They have no ability to be able to understand that people are different in many different ways because, well, God created everybody the same. So it doesn't make sense to them. And I mean, one of the things I had said to Zekel yesterday is that one of the things that it seems difficult is that it's nearly almost impossible for them to have an original thought to go and work out on it, because the first thing they have to do is reach for that Bible to see if that thought is something that they can even believe in. So I don't know, I'll throw that out.
They're basing their position on the Bible, excuse me, is doesn't work.
Right.
Because
no, I agree.
The old laws, the Levitical laws, and so on and so forth, those are passed because it's the new covenant. So those are passed. And there's only a couple of places, three, like if you want to say that even reference sexuality at once, and two of them, one is in Timothy and the other one's in. I always get.
Isn't there one in Corinthians too?
Oh, it's Corinthians. It's Corinthians. See, I knew that my mind was going for some reason, because they both start with C and they end with N's. I get Colossians and Corinthians mixed up, but then I'm dyslexic and that happens. No, it's Corinthians. It's Corinthians and Timothy. What happens is Paul used this word. I can't. It's archaios or something like that. I can't remember the exact word. And nobody knows what it means because this is apparently the first time this word was ever used. Paul likely made it up. And it's made of two words. One is man and one is bed. Nobody really knows because it's been translated in various ways. But some scholars believe it refers to pederasty. In other words, men having relationships with children, male children. Are those who think it refers to homosexuality. But given the Greek root of the word, if it does refer to homosexuality, it only refers to male. But the reality is no one knows exactly what Paul meant by that. Now, you'll hear some Christians try to say, and I actually had someone try to say that, no, but it's the same thing in Paul as it is in Leviticus. No. It's written, I think, in Hebrew. Pretty much in Hebrew. I know some parts were written in Aramaic and some were in Hebrew. I forget which. I think Leviticus was written in Hebrew. Timothy and Corinthians were written in Greek. And Paul made up this word. So how on earth can you tell me that they're saying the same thing? There's really making up. It's because you want it to mean the same thing. And this is, by the way, one of the ways that some conservative Christians try to tie the Old Testament into the New. By saying, oh yeah, but these things are still real in the Old Testament but they'll ignore the bacon wrapped shrimp.
They'll pick and choose. Yeah.
Everybody who will, look at the book, you have to interpret it. But you have to interpret a lot of things in life. If you've ever studied history, you know that you have to interpret things from the past. That it's not cut and dried. So there is interpretation. But then there's interpretation according to your bias, just strictly according to your bias. But then, so the only hat they have, the only peg they have to hang their hat on, is in Romans. And the problem with Romans is Romans was written to Paul's epistles were written to a specific group of people for a specific reason. And Romans was written to which had started, going back and having involving certain pagan practices in their worship, and this included temple prostitution. The problem with Romans is you kind of have to read the whole thing to get the idea. What Paul is talking about there, again, is people engaging in pagan practices. And if you want to say, to me, it's a stretch to say that Christianity condemns homosexuality because of one Romans. Jesus never said anything about it whatsoever. And if you want to hang your hat on Romans, well, go ahead. I don't think that's a very strong support. But then this is the group of people who get the part about where it says everybody knows that God exists from Romans. And yet it's very clear that Paul is not talking about everybody in the world. Paul is talking to these people there. He's telling the Romans, look, you guys know that God exists. You know what you're doing is wrong. So why are you doing all these things? And that's what Paul's talking about. So they get that part
weird in that way. But they don't understand that a letter to the Romans is addressed to the Romans,
right,
dealing with the things that the Romans are dealing with. And they think that it's applicable to everybody in all circumstances across the world in all times.
Exactly.
I mean, like if us godless heathens can see that and read it and understand what it is, I'm pretty sure they do too, but they're just using that and twisting it to suit their agenda, you could say.
Mm-hmm. I see I was correct in the side chat. Leviticus is Aramaic and Deuteronomy is Hebrew. See, I always forget which parts are originally Aramaic, and which parts are Hebrew.
Yeah, it basically just boils down to which one came first. And Deuteronomy, I think, was written by Ezra, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Jade, I want to... Oh, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I just hate the word agenda. Like, there's a bunch of... Agendas are what politicians and lobbyists have. Not a bunch of people that just want to be treated like people.
Yeah. Well, it's one of those weird words where it sounds like it has a nefarious meaning behind it. Like it's talking about something that someone's plotting behind in like a shady room. But it's
like politicians and
kind of like the word prejudice. We all have prejudice, and prejudice is an important part of our lives. You have a prejudice when you see a chair and you assume that you can sit in it.
Yeah.
That technically is prejudice.
The whole gay agenda thing comes from they're really creative in the stuff they want to believe. Sometime in the 1980s, like two guys wrote this article. I can't remember the name, but you can probably look it up. If you look up the gay agenda, you'll probably find this article. And basically what they're doing is they're saying, here's where we need to go forward in the gay movement. We need to make ourselves more visible. More people on TV, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And the idea, the whole thing, it's apparently terrifying to certain people. But the whole idea is that when people know people who are gay, there's less chance they're going to be homophobic. If you see people on TV and they're gay and they're just normal people, then people are going to go, well, yeah, they're just people. Homosexuals don't have two horns and a tail. It just doesn't work that way. If Sam was here, I'd make a Jewish joke, but he's not.
Only Sam is allowed to make the Jewish jokes.
Yeah, well, I probably could make this one. He'd laugh. Or I could probably, give him a chance to make it. But yeah, the thing is, people demonize others. And when you see people as just normal, just people, one of the things that has changed a lot is that as more and more people have come out as homosexual, transsexual, bisexual, so on and so forth, that fewer people are, you know,
it's this generation.
People are, I've seen conservative Republicans have to change their position when their kids came out.
Yeah, it's this generation because, you know, I have a son who is 20, and they can care less who's gay and who's not. You know, because they grew up with information, they grew up with at their fingertips and the wealth of knowledge, where for us, we had to go to the library. And for them, they just had to turn on a computer. They learn a lot faster than we have, and they just learn faster than that people are just people, and they have information more than what we did growing up. I know my views now on homosexuality are completely different than they were even 10 years ago, just because of information. And that's why it's a slow moving thing. That's why anything in this country is like moving the Titanic. It's easy to, when you first make that change, but then to get it back to where things, you know, should be, it's a Titanic, and it's slow moving.
That's a bad analogy.
Well,
it's like the Titanic. It goes straight and then it goes straight down.
Yeah, I understand.
Right.
But, you know,
Use the Queen Mary. Use the Queen Mary.
Okay, Queen Mary. But
Okay.
the point is that it will move. It just takes time. And you talk about the political agenda. This came out in the conservative Christians. This came out in the 80s, this late 70s and 80s, to try to make their political movement relevant, because they were kind of losing the grasp a little bit, and they wanted to be more in the political light to get the people who they wanted as judges, as, you know, politicians. So they actually created this agenda to come out to try to influence the political means of the country. And it took off as a wildfire, and now it's kind of hitting that wall, but it, like I said, it just moves a little slower than what it needs to.
I don't know. I think an apt quote to sort of describe the attitudes that people had would be from H.P. Lovecraft, where he said that the oldest emotion known to man is fear, and the oldest type of fear is fear of the unknown.
Yeah,
it's just
you're not fear of the dark
to a previous generation who isn't exposed and are not around to people who are gay. It's weird. It's different. They don't understand it. It's alien to them, and so they're fearful or hateful of it or dismiss it.
Okay, Xavier, man.
The generation that's more exposed to it, you know, it's.
I want to get Xavier to jump in here. Xavier, man, you're the only you're the only active duty guy in here, but you don't want to jump in. Come on, you're killing me.
I'm extremely polite. That's my problem. But during that hangout with G-Man, it was pretty much like I even said in the hangout, I was like, hey, you're holding me to a standard that I don't subscribe to. And then like you had True just try, like every single time I was like, hey, my standard is this and this. He was like, well, what backs up that? But I never heard from them anything other than, oh, it's unnatural. It doesn't add anything to society. And that was all their reasoning the entire time.
See, that's something that I found funny in G-Man's last hangout that he had, where he said that he actually said that no gay person had ever given anything to society.
While he's on a fucking computer.
Yeah, while he's on a computer.
I know.
How about World War II? How about World War II?
Yeah.
He was essentially won by a homosexual who broke the code for the Enigmas to be able to defeat the Germans.
And then went on to basically be the father of computer science.
Yeah.
Right, exactly.
Well, you know, Dragnet, you said active duty. I've been a firefighter for 25 years, and I don't know one gay homosexual male firefighter has come out of the closet. Now, we have females that have come out and actually, you know, been to their weddings and things like that. But as far as a male, I have not met one that has come out in the areas where I've worked. And it's sad because you know that there are there.
Yeah.
And
was you on the crash crew?
Am I on a crash crew? No, that's a whole different type of firefighting.
Yeah, because I was about to say my roommate was in Air Force. He was a fireman. And
yeah, no, I'm just a regular structural firefighter
Okay.
for a municipality.
That's. I mean, I serve with.
Well, I think
Go ahead, Jade.
it's sometimes harder for men because there's this great stigma.
Oh yeah.
The other thing too is that when you have women who become like police officers, they've already fought one battle. So to fight, to get that job. So if they're a lesbian, to come out is just, they've already fought one battle. I can do another one too.
And it's a lot of them personality-wise. Like one of my students, when I was precepting as a paramedic, she was a lesbian, or she is a lesbian. She's married with 2 beautiful children, and she just had this really carefree attitude about it. Where you could talk to her and everything else, and I thought that was so important, because just like anything else, the reason why people are afraid of the unknown is the lack of information and understanding. So when people are willing to talk about it and are willing to educate, like the one lady in here that was talking earlier, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name. I think that's a huge step in to help, turn the boat.
When I was young, and when I was involved in the lesbian feminist movement, at that time, homosexuals were looked at for the most part as predators, and that was one of the fear, that homosexuals were going to try to turn you or to go after your children.
You mean
And
the
people
PSAs?
people were actually afraid that some, like women were actually afraid that some lesbian was going to not just come on to them, maybe make them gay somehow. I'm not sure. And I always found
it's like a contagion.
Yeah, and one of the things I always found funny about this is that I've known women that that I worked with who were terrified, didn't know I was gay, who were terrified of homosexual women, because oh my God, they might turn me. And the thing is, these were women who I've known to go to bars and to be very adept at turning down really obnoxious men. Men who are bigger and stronger than they are, who would come on to them drunkenly and sometimes be very physical with them. And these women had no problem, turning away a man's unwanted affection. Why would they think that they would be unable to turn away a woman's unwanted affections? I never got that. It's like, so some woman comes on to you, you just say no thanks, or whatever. These horrible, tough guys in this bar, but you're terrified that a woman will come on to you? What the heck? Do they think that lesbians have some sort of magic? We have our own version of fairy dust, right?
Yeah, Xavier brought up something where he was talking about he was in that chat with True and G-Man or whatever, and he was saying like, they're putting something on him that he didn't deserve. I don't remember its exact words, but it was like they're putting him in a box and say, okay, this is where you belong. We're going to tell you where you belong, and you don't belong there. That's a big misconception, because when someone finds out, if they don't know that much about gays, they find out you're gay or lesbian, it's like, okay, they've already got all these preconceived ideas about what kind of person you are, and you're after my children or my husband or my wife or whatever, and on and on and on. It's like when they talk about atheists, or people find out that you're atheist, it's like, okay, well, we're going to put you in this box. You're an atheist. This is the box you belong in.
It's a thank you, Heavy, for mentioning the monolith. Yes, every person who's not a straight Christian has to be placed in some type of weird monolith, because evidently their version of Christianity can have many different flavors, many different sects, and many different varieties, but everyone else needs to be put in a box or a part of a monolith. The most gayest thing that I have dealt with in the military, and I think I've told the story before, was a guy. He looked more metrosexual than anything else, but he was a gay guy. And looking back, I think he's actually demisexual. He never talked about any of the guys he went out with. He never even talked about sex or anything even close to it. The gayest thing that he did was, I was on CQ, which is called charge of quarters. So I had to stay up for 24 hours, stand up at the barracks just in case anything happened overnight. And he came downstairs. He's like, "Hey, Mims, how you doing?" I was like, "Hey, what's going on, man?" And so he sat next to me, And he said, "Let me show you something." So he pulled out his phone, and I'm like, "All right, here we go." And so I'm hoping to see, something pretty interesting. And he showed me a series of pictures, and they were about 8 to 10 selfies of him he took selfies for 8 to 10 of them in various poses. That had to be the gayest thing I've ever seen in the military. And mind you, I looked at men's asses quite often in the field, and I just kind of looked at him, and this is that's pretty damn gay. He's like, "Oh, well, yeah, I like doing what I like doing," and he gave me a little wink, and it's like he wasn't your typical gay guy.
If that's all you had to deal with, drag, that's mild as fuck.
Yeah.
Well, no,
that's rather typical. Like that's pretty well a good way of testing the waters, like gauging the person's reaction.
Yeah, it's typical, but it is mild.
Yeah, no, all the straight guys would show me their asses and stuff. How weird is that, right? Supposedly straight guys. Yeah, but,
I'm from Saskatchewan. That shit ain't weird at all.
No.
Well,
like Hogtie has a story about a guy tickling his brother's balls in a bar after he punched him out, and I was unfazed by that story. So
no.
Like Irvine, yeah, you're laughing at that, but like that you've seen that before at Rogues or something.
Yeah.
Well, I was watching the G-Man chat before I came in here, and I lasted about 2 minutes because, he piped up and had said that he wanted to make this point, and the point was that someone was talking about the chemical makeup and how they're trying to, kind of figure out, lack of a better term, the gay gene and different areas of testosterone and stuff like that. And he said pretty much that he didn't care about the chemical makeup because in their mind it's a choice. They think it's just, hey, today I'm going to go out.
Well, even though we have lots and lots of evidence,
right,
for homosexuality, and I think probably even more, believe it or not, for transsexuality.
Yeah. Well, the funny thing is with G-Man is he thinks that he'll say in one breath, homosexuality is a mental illness, and then in the other breath he says, no, it's a choice.
Right.
How the hell does that work? I'm sorry. Do schizophrenics choose to see delusions?
I always ask them then, when did they choose to be straight?
Well, he thinks he chose to be straight.
No, I'm sorry. It can't be a mental illness and be a choice.
Yeah, or better yet, ask them, did they try sucking on some other guy?
It's a choice? Okay, prove that it's a choice. Spit on your hand right now.
I look back, growing up, it would have been great to be bisexual because I can't tell you how many parties I went to. It was just kind of a sausage fest. I still would have gotten lucky. It would have been awesome. Because who hates sex? It would have been great, but...
I can't get laid. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, John, come here. The girls aren't here. Come on,
Yeah, like I said before, I knew I was different when I was like 5 and 6 years old. I mean, where did I make the choice when a doctor spanked me and when I went, "Oh, Daddy"? When I was born? It's the doctor's fault. He spanked me, and I went, "Ooh, Daddy."
Or when you came out,
literally the first
I'm never going back in there again. No way. Forget that.
Yeah.
I think I got him to admit that it's a choice in action and not necessarily an attraction. But I don't know if everybody agrees with that. I think they did kind of concede to that. At least two of them.
I left before. Honestly, I left you. I heard that coming because you were. I'm sorry, I don't know your name. You were the one talking to him, and that was when I heard it and stuff. And I left. So to be honest, I didn't hear the follow up. Because I know you were talking to him about it. But
that kind of like touches on the root of the problem is that they conflate a decided action, engaging in gay sex, sexual attraction.
On that topic,
between the two.
On that topic, a man who is married to a woman who has a profession as a gay porn star, what should he be considered? What would he consider himself, and what would society consider him? I think we should use that model to discuss the intricacies of what we're talking about here, because I think that'd
be awesome.
Hard worker.
I think that elucidates a bit better kind of what we're making this distinction for. Anyone can go out and commit an act of homosexuality, but that doesn't mean that they're romantically attracted to the opposite sex.
Vice did a great documentary called Gay for Pay, where it was covering straight guys who performing gay porn for money because their life has led them to that road. They take a bunch of pills to make themselves hard, and then they perform.
Using their assets to the fullest. Yes.
Well, I guess I have a question. Can I ask a personal question to Jade?
Sure.
Okay. I generally resent the I can be friendly to conservative Christians because I don't think all of them hate gay people. I actually don't think all of them do. And so when I talk about this subject, I tend to kind of chew my tongue off and take my gloves off and kind of play patty cake a little bit. I guess one of the frustrations I have, and I think you've mentioned it as well, is I get frustrated that it's completely just sexualized. Yeah. And there's no talk about intimacy or connection and the real reasons why we do have sex, which is based on intimacy and connection and reasons like that. It's always based on the plumbing and how, who fucks who. I guess for me, like I've only slept with one person. I have a very conservative lifestyle. And I don't know, Jade, are you living it up?
Nope.
You're not living it up?
Nope, sorry. Living it up. I'm actually quite conservative sexually. And this is something, again, they think that, besides being demisexual, which of course means, as I've mentioned before, means I'm not sexually attracted to someone until after I've developed a relationship with them. I've gotten to know them. And then if that way, things may not. But I'm very conservative, and I've slept with fewer people than they probably are aware of. And it's none of their business. I don't believe in casual sex. It's just not, don't believe in it. But they automatically will put me into this category of, I guess I'm supposed to be having wild sex or something. And not.
Right, because that's the numbers that they'll show is that gay people have more diseases, gay people sleep around more, gay people have failed relationships, and actually now I think the numbers are shifting in a more positive way to monogamy and stuff.
Well, yeah, and as you weren't in here when I mentioned about how some gay men will have a very devoted relationship. And yet they will allow for, stepping out once in a while. And they often have, agreements. As I said, you can, never sleep with someone more than once or twice. Don't take them to our favorite place or something like that. And the thing is that to them, and I guess not all gay men, I'm talking about some, there are probably some women like that too. I just have never met them. Or at least I've never met them where the relationship actually worked out that way.
I could have sworn that.
Let me just finish, Sokka, if I could, because Deidre was not here when I. But the thing is, to these men, that's important. It's the emotional relationship. To them, if someone were to get emotionally involved with someone else, that would be adultery. That would be violating their relationship. Having sex with someone else to some people is just sex. Yeah. Go ahead, Taka.
When you're talking about the demographics, I can't remember what it was, but last time that I think that there is any type of study on that, the largest demographic for I can't remember if it was HIVs or just STDs in general, but I think it was African American males.
Yeah,
last one I saw.
Yeah, and especially the DMV area. Yeah, straight African American males. In the DMV area, impoverished. I can't remember what it's called. The Washington D.C. area, Baltimore, that sort of area of the United States, and Atlanta, Georgia. There's a high rate of HIV.
Heterosexual black men that insist on going bareback. Got it.
Yeah, well, a lot of them are living as what they call down low. They live in the down low lifestyle, and so many of them are gay, right, but they're trying to pass as straight, and so they end up getting, the HIV virus from a partner, and then sometimes they end up passing on to their wives and their girlfriends, and so that's only one aspect of it, but it is a truly devastating issue because it's kept underground, and that allows it to proliferate. But I want to get Aravine in here too, and somebody else has a question.
Okay, sorry. So I wanted to share my story if anyone was interested in it.
Yeah.
Well, don't be shy.
Go for it.
Please.
Okay, so it all began in 2015 when I was living with my grandma, and it started out as I was gay, and unfortunately I was raped by my elder cousin at the time, multiple times, and ever since then I just thought I was gay. I liked men, that was it. And more and more times that came up, being threatened and all for my life. It was very hard for me. And then when I was kicked out by my grandma for something very stupid, money-wise, I lived with my auntie for a few days. And after that, I lived with my best friends, and I started to come out. And a few of my family members noticed, and I started to feel more and more comfortable with coming out. So I just tried to discover who I was and who I should have been and who I was meant to be. So later on in life, I discovered I was transgender, and that being a woman is someone who I really wanted to be. And though I struggled very much with the rape and trying to be with someone, trying to find out who I was very hard. So my family never really accepted me. My own grandma, my cookum in Cree, it's cookum, wanted to disown me, just pretend like I didn't exist, that I wasn't related to her at all. Really hurt me, because after all I've been through with her, after the several heart attacks and the ending up in the hospital, you know, I still loved her. And that part of my heart still is there, even though that I'm no longer a part of the family. Fortunately, I still have cousins who accept me for who I am, even though my name change still it's
Not
very
finalized.
hard. Sorry, what was that?
Not finalized.
Exactly. To them, I'm still known as my dead name, as we transgenders call it.
Right.
And it's let me tell you, it's very, very hard to try and tell my my family itself that I am Aravine Lucinda Ethier, and I would like to be announced as such and be called Aravine from now on, since it's from 3-4 years ago since I made up my name. And then soon after, I dated someone who was amazing, who accepted me for who I am. And let me tell you right now, that is not easy to come by, since I was still transitioning, and I was very scared in telling that significant other that I was transgender, worrying about constantly worrying about if they would accept me for, you know, having male genitals, if I may say. And then later on in life, still struggling with the fact that my grandma and family could not accept that I was a female and wanted to be a female. It was very strange for me that, and then I sooner realized that it was just their old ways, that male should be male, women should be women. That's it. And because of the religion at the time, Roman Catholic, because of that religion, they were so stuck in their ways that it was so unacceptable that I later realized that, you know, I could be whoever I want to be. You know, I can do whatever I want to do without someone hanging over my shoulders, telling me what to do, who to see, who my friend should be. Like, even my own grandma told me half the time that I have no friends. That I was only to go to school, go to work, that's it. And if I wanted to go hang out with my friends for like an hour or so, she would go like, go have gay sex, go have fun with your gay friends. Or when I was hanging out with my Muslim friends, she would go like, go have fun with your Muslim friends. And, you know, it was very, very hard for me because I love my grandma so much. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. I understand. I've seen so many people just devastated by their family's reactions, and sometimes after a while the families come around, and sometimes they don't. And this is one of the reasons why, you know, LGBT people end up making their own families, creating their own families, and having, you know, and you know, just at some point give up going to, you know, Christmas or Thanksgiving celebrations with the biological family and just having them with your real family, the family who loves you, the family who understands you, the family who cares for you, the family who would do anything for you, the family who knows what it's like to be isolated. And they aren't all LGBT either. There's, you know, straight people, straight cis people who, and because they just don't see a difference, they don't see the big deal. You're just you. So there are some very good people out there, and it's just sad that people have been raised in such a way that they have this ignorance and this fear. I will never understand how someone could just discard a child that you've loved your entire life because of their sexuality. Just, they're the same person. You're the same person. You know, it's
And you know, I would like to mention something else. I was in a bad argument with my grandma and my auntie at the time. When I came home from work, they had accused me of stealing a movie. Oddly enough, a movie.
Yeah.
And you know, I was like, you know what? Go search my room. Go through my room like you usually do, because my family used to go through my room all the time. They used to go through all my things. My cookum would go through all my clothes, and I would come home from school with a pile of clothes in the middle of my floor. And if things weren't done right by her standards, they would be all in the middle of the floor or on my bed. You know, and I used to go to Valley Village with her sometimes, and I would collect feminine scarves, women's scarves, and stuff like that. And she would find them when I tried to hide them. She would find them, and she would have them on the kitchen table or in my room somewhere, and with a note. She would always have a note sometimes. And you know, when I wanted to. I even said to her, I was so fed up. I had a long fucking day at work. And I just said, go through my room. I said, go downstairs and turn my room up. I said, go look. I have no movies to steal. I don't have anything. I said, I can prove to you I don't steal. And so I said, they just said, you're lying. And so I said, I'm fed up. I said, I'm sick of this. I said, I'm moving out. I said, I'm moving on. I'm packing up my stuff. I'm moving out. And so I went downstairs and I started packing up my stuff. My grandma comes downstairs and she says to me that all these things like, you're going to be a drug addict like your mother. You're going to be alcoholic like your father. You're going to be out there all alone. Who would love you? I said, she said, I'm the only one who takes care of you here. And she also said that you're just a piece of shit that someone left on my doorstep.
Oh, God. Arvine, I'm so sorry.
I find that when...
so
Go ahead,
terribly
Jake.
sorry. That's just all I wanted to say.
I'm
Because you're
sorry.
you're
It should
not
happen
at
like that.
all.
Yeah, I find that when people unjustly go in on people, like, and I say unjustly, there's something seriously wrong with them. There very rarely do I find that people who are that hateful, tend to be well-adjusted adults. When people speak of the cycle of hate, that is actually very true. And it's hard to think of, someone who is emotionally and verbally and even physically abusive to be a victim, but oftentimes that is something that is propagated, and so that cycle then continues. And we see this in child rearing, and we see this in situations like yours, where that fear and ignorance have coalesced to make something just so potent that it has a traumatic impact on people. And one of the things that I have learned growing up and being under the heel of many, many ignorant people is that they will never truly be happy. No matter how much hate that they express, they will always be miserable. And so what you have to end up doing is looking at where they went wrong in life and not making that same mistake. And of course, you're not going to pass on that hate to anyone else, but there are other things in their life where they cannot get it together. And so that is what you can take solace in later on in life.
Yeah, and and then at that time, she started throwing stuff at me. I was living in the basement at the time, and that's when my auntie and my unfortunate cousin, who allegedly raped me, was living with us at the time. She started throwing my things at me. I had pottery that I made and had it on my TV table. She started throwing that stuff at me. Fortunately, it didn't break. And then she grabbed my laptop. She smashed it in front of me. And she was so harsh to me. She kicked me. She would abuse me. She would hit me with a fly swatter. Anything she would do to harm me. I remember one time specifically, she I don't know what I did, but I did something to make her very upset. And she went to the cupboard. She grabbed my birth certificate and she showed it to me and she said, "You know what this is?" I said, "Yeah, it's my birth certificate." I said, "Yes, you see this?" And then she said, this means I own you. This means you are mine. You are my property. I own you." And she made it clear, because she was getting help from the government, also from social services, that she also said that I have to pay my way into living at the house. I have to pay my rent. I was 17 at the time. 16, 17 at the time. And that day, I was young. I didn't know any better. I didn't know right from wrong. And by the time I told my teachers, it was too late. And at that time, I was very scared of my grandma. Whenever I did something, wrong, she would make me go out into the rain, in the pouring rain, and cut the grass along the fence with scissors. She would make me mow the lawn in the rain. She would she would make me wash the floor by my knees and hands. Like, my auntie and cousin that lived there at the time, they didn't do nothing. You know, I was basically a slave in my own home. And now that I think about it from the past, I was literally treated like a slave. I was treated like shit. I was made out to be the horrible person. Like, my grandma, my cookum said that I was going to be a drug addict, I was going to be an alcoholic, I was going to be loved by no one, piece of shit that someone left on their doorstep. You know, all these horrible things that she would say to me that, you know, she didn't have no remorse for. She didn't feel anything from saying that. And I feel so sorry for my brothers that have to live with her, that been put through torture, that were you know, abused physically and mentally and verbally, you know, and hidden, like, we were hit with a broom at some times. And it was just the most horrible thing that one could do to someone who took them from my mother. Like, me and my brothers were taken from my mother because she was gone drinking, she was doing drugs and stuff, and I didn't understand why, because I was so young at the time. And that's when I lived in Shellbrook. And, you know, it was very hard because I didn't understand. But when I see my grandma, I was so happy. I felt so overjoyed that, you know, this is the person that's related to me. This is someone who I care about, who I trust. And when you're abused and hated and, you know, put down, after time, it really becomes so hard. But yet, being the person who I am, you know, I put myself in a position where I'm not allowed to hate. I'm not allowed to, you know, put on that feeling that, like, that this person did so much to me that, you know, I should hate them, that I should wish bad upon them. No, I'm not like that. You know, I'm someone who's considerate, who's loving, who's caring. You know, my grandma, who suffered so many heart attacks and almost died a few times, you know, in my arms, you know, I still love her. And more that I think to myself, why is that? You know, why do I love her after all that she did to me? After all that she put me through, why do I love her? You know, I think to myself, I say, you know, no matter what, there's always room for forgiveness. And forgiveness for me is a lot. And forgiving my grandma, my cookum, for all bad that she had done is, you know, has really been a big deal for me ever since. And it's been since 2015, 2016, since all that happened after I graduated. You know, there was only 3 people that showed up at my graduation. And I was in this black suit with this pink tie, pink outfit, and makeup, and my hair done. And the only 3 people that showed up was my best friend, Corey, my auntie, my uncle, and my cousin. Those people were the only ones who showed up at my graduation. I didn't care who was there. I just, you know, I wished for more at the time. But, you know, that that feeling of stepping forward, showing everyone who I was the hugest thing for me. And believe me, at the time, I don't think no one else would have done what I did.
Wow. That's a lot.
I hate you had to go through all that because I've never went through anything like that. Like I said, I've been very fortunate, in a lot of things. The one thing though I wanted to mention though, and you might go, what? Okay, what your grandmother and all the people did to you, and you're talking about forgiving them. As you get older, you may get to a point where you may find that there is a lot of hate and anger and resentment buried down deep, and you may have to let that out. Even if it's just sitting all by yourself and going, God damn it, what? Just cussing, for all it's worth. That may happen, and if it happens, don't let that get you down because it's just being a normal human being. Because I've caught myself in a few situations, didn't have to be with me being gay or anything, but to where, as much as I cared about somebody in my family because of the way they treated me when I was younger, well, my father. I mean, he was a weekend alcoholic and beat me and my mom a lot when I was a kid. So as he got older, he finally stopped drinking and he changed. And he tried to be friends with me, and I tried to be friends with him. And he really did try. He never did say he was sorry ever. And see, I held that against him, and I still hold that against him now, even though he's long gone and dead. So deep down inside, there may be this resentment, and if it surfaces, just let it out. If you're by yourself, just let it out, get it out of the way, and then move on with your life. It doesn't mean that you're a bad person or whatever, or that you hate, your grandmother, whoever. It just means that you're just human. And sometimes you just have to break down like that and get something out of the way that's in there. Now, this may not happen to you, but if it does, don't think bad of yourself for doing it.
Right.
Rest yourself, get it over with, and it doesn't change the fact that you still love your grandmother or your members of your family. It's just something that's there that you might need to deal with someday when you get older.
You're allowed to be angry.
Yeah.
It's just, something I want to mention too, and this is more to anybody who might be listening to this hangout, who's on the fence about whether it's a choice or not, is definitely not a choice. No one goes through that by choice. No one goes through oppression by choice. No one chooses to be gay. No one chooses to be this way. No one chooses this difficulty, added stress, anxiety, all the problems that go with it, as a fashion statement, for basically is all I could say about it, because I didn't suffer anything like what Ravine went through, and I honestly, I can't imagine. I can't even empathize with it. All I could say is I sympathize with it, because that's wow. That was powerful.
Yeah. Transgender folks tend to be really
well, yeah, they go through the worst of it, because
like I've noticed that a lot of sexual assaults and rapes happen with transgender people for some reason.
Because it is odd. Well, because it's such a blatant change. I mean, typically they overnight, especially the younger, try to go overnight and change their appearance. So they'll go from looking like a boy to a girl, or a girl to a boy overnight, and it's not because it's what they feel comfortable in, and it's people who know them are going to either accept that or they're going to reject it out of hand, and the ones that reject it out of hand sometimes do so violently.
Well, worse than that, it's not that they reject it out of hand. One of the things that really, really pisses me off is if you see a couple of interviews with Ben Shapiro on transgender people, he will often bring up this stat that, we should limit transgender rights, liberties, or just basic decency to transgender people on the basis that, they're involved in more sexual assaults than any other group per capita. So yes,
you know what?
the key word there is involved. They're the victims.
Right. They're the
Yes,
victims. They're
yes,
not the
they're the
aggressors.
victims. Yeah, and I
So
wanted to say something. Oh, you want to go ahead, David, and I can go later.
I was just gonna say, like even in my own story, like part of the reason I didn't really come out except to a few select people. When I came out to very slowly over my life, and I tried to come out to my mom back before I even got married to my wife. I told her I had a crush on my roommate, and she basically said, "Why are you telling me this?" And I felt it was like a slap in the face because I felt like I could trust her. I felt like I had that kind of relationship with her, and it was like, well, why did my sister tell her that she had a boyfriend? Why would any child tell their parent that they were in love with someone because they want advice, basically? And at that point, it was like, okay, I get it. You don't want me around. You don't want to acknowledge that part of me. And it came up years later. It wasn't that. It was just like, well, I didn't know what you wanted from me. You were a grown person at the time. And I'm like, well, yeah, but it's a different tat at that point because I didn't know how to deal with it.
What I wanted to say about, I think I mentioned earlier that there's a lot of evidence for transsexuality. And a lot of people don't know about this because it isn't under transsexuality. I've spent some time doing some research on this. And I used to have a list of papers, but they're on a computer that I can't access, unfortunately. And if you look at a lot of, there's been a lot of research done on various, the effects of various chemicals on animals, right? And whether it's pesticides or herbicides or chemicals used as dyes or just chemicals used in the environment. And what they do is they test these chemicals on various different animals, including rats. And there are a lot of cases where chemicals on rats, that some of these chemicals have hormonal-like influences, right? Or they have hormonal-like chemicals, or even just hormonal chemicals, period. And what will happen is that they will test these chemicals on pregnant rats to see what the effect would be on the offspring. Find that the result might be a male rat, fully male, DNA male, internal, external organs male. Well, in men, it's actually all external, but all their organs are male. Male rats who behave, or female rats who behave like male rats. So there's a lot of evidence that chemical influences before birth can result in a disconnect between the mind and the body. And we see this on a number of test animals. And there are lots and lots of papers that show this. But as I said, you're not going to find them if you're going to look up, transsexuality or anything. These are just papers, research on, the effect, as I said, of various chemicals. And they're done on the tests are done on rats, on mice. They've been done on primates and other animals. And I know some people might say, well, they're done on rats. What does that have to do with humans? Well, if you're going to take that attitude, you probably never want to go into a grocery store or buy any clothing because everything is tested on rats. That's how we judge whether things work or not. But as I said, there is a lot of evidence that certain chemical, certain chemical influences before birth, and these include hormonal chemicals, which are natural, can result in a mind-body disconnect. So for someone to say that transsexuality isn't real, or people are fooling themselves, or whatever they want to say, it's utter nonsense.
I think it's real, and I agree with you. I just don't know if I agree with the route to go about treating body dysmorphia. And I think sometimes some people feel like their life is better by going through some physical changes, and other people it doesn't phase where they're at all. So I'm not sure which route to go. Obviously, I agree there's a disconnect between mind and body, and I do agree that it's probably something that happens in womb.
Yeah, and I think that's why counseling is important, because there are trans people who feel like they need the surgery to be whole. There are other
Okay.
trans people who don't feel like they need the surgery. Go ahead.
I would like to say something. I am so sorry, Jane. Forgive me. I feel I would like to say something to the parents thing. So I would just like to finish this one. I feel like I need the surgery. Like
Okay.
as a woman, like I don't feel like I'm male anymore. Like I want the surgery so bad so I can feel like every other woman out there, every other straight woman. Like I would love so much to have a vagina that I am almost practically willing to do almost anything for it. Like I would be willing to fake having to, like, oh, my weight is good, oh, my anxiety is good, you know, my mental health is great, you know, I'm willing to fake through all of that to my therapist in order to be
don't say
cleared
that,
for
Lebanon.
surgery.
Well, I definitely that urge. That's something that I've heard from other people because you want to feel whole. You want to feel like you visualize yourself, and that's something I think very, very, very few people can ever really understand unless they're in your position. But I do have a question, Aravine. Are you familiar with this little weird corner of YouTube that we occupy? Do you watch any of the videos from me or any of the other people associated with the Great Debate?
No.
You don't? Okay, because I was going to ask you if one of the things you were willing to do would be to steal a safe.
Okay, she understands that reference, but
inside joke.
Yeah,
no, like I tried introducing you to the whole Hangouts thing a while back, and you watched the Nadia Hangout that I was in, and unfortunately, it started off with Christian Hillbilly.
Oh, of course.
Oh yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Ooh.
So
I would just like to mention. I'm sorry. I would just like to mention me and Nicola. Yes, we have dated, and I would like to say that yes, he is someone who is perfect for me.
Is he a gentle lover? I think he's a gentle lover. I picture him as a gentle lover.
Yes, most of the time.
As long as I'm
I
not
have a
pulling hair.
question.
So what you're saying, Everly, is that you're Cinderella, is what you're saying.
Yep.
There you go.
Do you think that people who have same-sex attraction but aren't attracted to people who have that they're transgender, do you think that they're bigoted?
Yes, I do. Because of you know, certain sexualities, and also being transgender as itself, you know, we are always bigoted. You know, we are always kept in the dark. And more and more or less that in Saskatoon now, as we speak, we are trying to get ourselves more and more out there. And it is very hard, especially with the sexuality. You know, that's not even mentioned in that part. You know, we love anyone, you know, someone who is going from male to female, female to male. You know, sometimes we have that urge that, you know, oh, I like this person. I feel something for this person. And I feel that now as myself, who I like some transgender people as also, you know, that's something that's that I actually figured out for myself. That's something new for me also. That someone
so
who.
So do you think that you could date somebody and not reveal that you're transgender?
No.
Okay.
I feel like I should have to. I need, as a person who is transgender, I need to tell that person that I am transgender. I do have male parts right now at this moment. You know, it's something that needs to be said before anything else goes on, because you don't know whether that person, when you're having intimacy, that person finds out you have a penis at the time, you know, that person says, oh no, I'm sorry, I'm not into this. And, you know, you're left with guilt, you're left with fear, you're left with a horrifying feeling. You know, I think transgender people need to be more open with themselves as when it comes to trying to date someone, when it's come to like dating sites, you know, something like that. You know, you have to tell that person that what you have down below at this moment, even though you fear it at the very moment, you know, you gotta talk to that person. You gotta mention that, oh, I have this right now, but I'm also wanting very much to get this.
So I got another question, kind of along the same vein. I'm attracted to women sometimes, but I'm never attracted to butch women, masculine women. Does that mean I'm bigoted?
No. No,
why not? What? Okay, let me go back and say I've never been attracted to a transgendered woman ever. Now that could change, but I never have. Am I bigoted?
No.
Okay.
Yeah, I think one of the things too is that you do have a certain, I think, fringe element of trans individuals who were in some way shaming other individuals, especially cis individuals, into, I guess, opening their preference to them so they have a larger pool. And I say fringe because they do exist and they are on the fringes, and that is not something that I've seen represented by the large majority of people who identify as trans. And it's one of the more awkward instances because only within that small microcosm of that group exists anything that could be even remotely related to what people refer to as, and I put this in air quote, an agenda. So I think that definitely getting that stuff out in the open is helpful when we have this conversation, but you know, not to also deny that yes, there are people like that out there, but they only represent a very small fraction of that entire demographic. But so I want to get Atheist Ranger, you're back in here. Did you have a good podcast, sir?
Yeah. Show lasted about 45 minutes. It was a good show. We talked about a lot of current issues going on right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
So I wanted to also.
America's about to explode.
Hmm?
Oh, not yet.
Oh, I did want to get to some of the issues that many of us have encountered with radical evangelicals, and I say us, not because I include myself in LGBTQ, but in the interactions with them, because some of us who don't have any overt hostilities towards LGBTQ individuals are in an awkward place where we do have family members who or just friends who make things very awkward by their, overt bigotry, usually from, well, in this case, from their religious indoctrination or from just their general ignorance. So I wanted to get your input, Atheist Ranger, on how you deal with that. And especially I want to get your input too, Holy Spackle, because you are religious, and of course you, Jade.
My input on that is I haven't gotten too much crap, at least before I got here online, I should say, from religious people. I do have a sister. She is a hardcore Baptist, but she was very supportive. In fact, most of the shit that I've gotten from being bisexual is, believe it or not, from gay people, because you'd be surprised.
That's not surprising at all.
Yeah, I was going to say, you'd be surprised, and obviously Nikolai is the exception, that, bisexual men are just gay men who are half out of the closet. I'm sorry, that's just simply not the case. I have attraction to men and women, and in my specific case, I prefer women. And but as far as the evangelicals are concerned, I'm not. I try to avoid them because that's just not. I mean, having that kind of discussion with them, I mean, you might as well just bang your head against the wall.
Okay. Actually, Holy Spackle, you want to give your 2 cents, especially since you just came out of the fundy hole from hell.
Can you give me a quick recap, because I was talking real quick about the rocket that went through San Diego.
Oh, okay, yeah. So I wanted to get people's input on their dealings with some of the radical evangelicals. You know, it doesn't have to be family members. It could be just the ones that we deal with here, and I guess the intricacies of how you go about living your life and not taking what they say too personally, because at the end of the day, they are attacking, you know, people's identities, who they are at their core, especially asking malformed questions such as, you know, what does your lifestyle, or what do people like you contribute, or I should say benefit society?
I think you end up compartmentalized a lot. So, like, especially if you're religious, you end up compartmentalizing things. So, like, when I walk in and talk to Matt Slick about it, yes, I sense the the condescension, and I can kind of sense the what I feel like is bigotry a little bit oozing through, but I also can recognize that I think that there is a form of caring that is somewhere in there as well. So like I actually think Matt Slick does care. And I think the reason why I think that is because I've worked closely with some evangelicals that do have very conservative and maybe awful ways of putting things, and I look at it as sort of a form of forgiveness, like you know, like when you forgive somebody for what they're saying because you think, you know, from your point of view, you think that you're doing a moral good, and there's some way of reconciling that, so that way you don't, you know, lash out in hatred or get aggravated, you know. But it's tough. It's definitely been drilled into me that to do such things is to be especially evil and especially hated. And when I brought that up in the hangout before, they said, no, that's not what we meant. But I mean, it's been drilled into me pretty hard that it's like you're subhuman, you know. And I don't know, it is tough, because I think most people in my position do struggle with depression, anxiety, suicidal thoughts, so all the wonderful things like that.
I would like to say something to Holy Spackle. I was wondering, why do you think of yourself as a bigot? Like, what is your why do you think that you're a bigot for wanting to do the for I'm sorry, forgive me, for what you said to me earlier?
Oh, actually, I don't think I'm a bigot. Actually, I think preference is silly to call someone bigoted over, but I've heard people call people bigoted over not being attracted to transgender people, and that's why I asked if you would consider that the case.
Okay, yeah, no, someone who is a bigot is someone who does not accept LGBT people as who they are. They think that men and women are like, they should be attracted to men and women. You know, my feelings about someone who is bigot is prejudice towards LGBT people. And for those that are prejudiced, you know, they are scared half the time that, oh, oh, this person's gay or this person's lesbian. Oh, I'm gonna catch something from them. Oh, they become scared. They become, they don't know what to think of somebody. It's like somebody from another religion. Think of it that way. Someone who's from another religion, they're scared, they're prejudiced, they don't know what you want to do, what you intend to do. For someone who is LGBT, like, we're just as everybody else. We try to live the same lives as every other straight person, every other person who was accepted into this community. It's scary to think that someone who is straight, to meet someone who is LGBT, they don't know. And some of them I can tell you right now, they don't know who they are, what their sexuality is until, we tell them. And someone who defines themselves, like we sometimes define themselves as a bigot, someone who is scared to be in contact or talk to someone who is different from a sex or religion, or someone who is different. I'm scared of someone who is. I'm scared of someone who is straight. I'm scared of someone who thinks that LGBT people are damned to hell. It's scary in this world right now, and where I am right now, living in this big small city. It's scary for someone like me to roam around and do my day-to-day lives without someone hollering at me or someone saying, "You look like a man, why don't you dress like a man?" And it's very different. And as a trans woman, we like, some of us don't see gender, some of us don't see sex, some of us don't see religion. It's not that different from anybody else who thinks that. And I'm Muslim, and for some Muslim sisters and brothers, some of them say it's okay to be who you are. It's okay, because some of them are not strong about the religion as I am. I'm not strong about the religion, and I'm also pagan. I'm also Wiccan. There's certain things that someone accepts to themselves that, I can accept any religion, when I get to know it. And, I feel that people need to be more open-minded. People need to educate themselves and learn about these certain things. And it's about the fear. Some men, as a matter of fact, some men feel like when I talk to them, me specifically, they think that, oh, I'm not gay. You don't have to be gay to like someone who's different, someone whose sexuality is different. You just got to be open-minded. And half the time they're not. And
But you'd agree that, like, attraction isn't a choice. It happens, right?
Yes, of course.
Right. So
yeah, I was going to say, I don't think that's a very good definition of what bigotry is, but I think what Holy Spackle was coming from was the idea there are some people who try to define it as, like, you're not being attracted to someone is a form of bigotry, and it's a mischaracterization of something you have no control over.
Right.
Can you say straw man?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it would be like saying, well, you don't want, you're not attracted to women, or you don't want to have sex with women. That means you're a bigot. I'm like,
no, exactly.
Well,
I mean,
because what happens is that a lot of the experience, like a lot of people that don't know people that are transgender, get a lot of their exposure to transgender people from YouTubers. So there's that Riley woman. I can't remember what her full name is. Who's actually come up with videos before, basically saying that if you are a man and you're not attracted to a trans woman, you are a bigot. And this is the exposure that a lot of people have that aren't in those communities, that don't know these people personally. So when people have, this is like one of the problems with the people that kind of latch on to, I don't want to call it alt-right because that's like a fucking terrible name. But you start seeing like some of this, these prejudicial attitudes coming up now in communities in YouTube and Discord and whatever. These things are an offshoot that are influenced directly by these YouTubers out there that represent positions that do not actually represent the whole of the transgender community.
And Saka brings up a good point, because there isn't a real standard course on human sexuality that's taught in social studies. Like this trans people have been around forever under different names that are considered pejoratives now, but this is something that's still relatively new. And so with the access to the internet, people are given more exposure to certain types of trans individuals, and so often not, you'll get the most loud and I guess boisterous individuals that don't necessarily represent the average person that fills that category. So I think it is important to acknowledge like some of the fringe individuals that you will happen to come across, but to identify that the positions that many people take aren't as ludicrous as many people may say, because I know there are plenty of people who have an opinion of trans individuals as just being very, very, very radical, very sexually liberated, to the point that they would then try and openly recruit, then becoming that literal stereotype that you see radical evangelical people pushing. So
it sounds like you're describing Iran.
All right.
If you know what their policy is towards gay individuals, then that kind of makes sense.
No. Don't. Nicola, don't try and pull.
I'm not pulling
Iran,
shit.
Trying to pull Iran into this. Because I am more into the Muslim communities and when more than.
Yeah, I was just going off of what Drag said. The stereotype of radical evangelicals is that people are trying to recruit other people. And unfortunately right now, because there is a lot of ignorance in Iran, Iran is accepting of transgender individuals, but not accepting or permissive of homosexuality. So if somebody gets caught in homosexual acts, they will face a lot of pressure to undergo sex reassignment surgery.
Yeah, so homosexuals are getting thrown from buildings or executed or imprisoned, but transgendered people they have some sympathy towards, which is interesting. It is very interesting.
Well, it is an oddity. I used to joke when Iran made that policy that you're not allowed to persecute transgender individuals. It was kind of messed up that somebody in Alabama could say, I need to go somewhere more progressive like Iran.
Wow. So, I mean, I think for me, like, I veered on a more liberal side the last 2 years, and now I'm starting to slide a little more conservative on this issue, only because I've seen so many transgender people get surgery and still remain in the situation they are, that sometimes I think maybe we are in a mind-body situation where one has to give to the other, and if you can't find satisfaction in your body, this is such a bad can of worms, this is going to be so unpopular and bad. Is it easier to change your mind than your body? I think it's harder to change your mind than body, and I think that's why we've gone that route. But this is super duper minefield right here. I asked Nadia once, I said, if you could change your mind so that you would feel comfortable in the body that you have, not for religious reasons or anything like that, but just for pure happiness, would you opt to change your mind or your body? And Nadia said her mind, which was shocking. And so I think that's interesting. And it's a can of worms because you don't want to, the gay therapy, shock therapy stuff. You don't want to jump into that. But I do think it's interesting that we do opt to change the plumbing because the mind's too complicated.
I'm sorry, some gay therapy? Can you elaborate on that?
Gay conversion therapy that pray away the gay stuff, and the also electric shock therapy and all the other pseudoscience that people tried, which is now listed as a kind of torture.
Okay, I see.
Yeah, I think it's kind of an American thing at this point.
It is.
So,
yes, it is.
Midnight, we didn't get to you. I think you were AFK or playing with yourself or something. I don't know what's going on. So, everyone did their intros and a little bit about themselves and their sexuality and how they came about it. So, you want to go ahead and give yours?
Well, I mean, there's not really much to tell, really. Over the years, I tried to, talk to girls or whatever. That I guess they were never interested in me. It was like, all right, whatever. There's not really anything there. So that was anticlimactic.
So you said
an intro.
You said because you're not interesting, but Midnight, you said that you were bisexual.
Yeah.
So are you interested in men just by almost default because women don't find you interesting?
Wait, I would like to see something on that. Bisexual means you could be in love with either or, and like men or women, and someone who would be bisexual, they would be in love with someone who is, say, transgender, someone who is maybe, gay, something like that. I would like to put my word in that.
I can't speak for Midnight, but I've been attracted to transgenders several times in my life.
Well, as have I. I mean, I wouldn't mind dating one, but where to find one? I don't know.
I am generally not. I've yet to see that, and I would definitely put it on the sliding scale towards female.
So we have a really mixed crowd here with demisexual, trans, bi, and homo, and hetero. Okay, we have heterosexual here. So yeah, there's a sock account.
Did good with the terms, then veered off wildly at the end there.
What was that other one? The
white cisgendered male here.
Pansexuals being open to everybody.
Yeah,
I think this is pretty cool that I'm straight and I'm the minority.
Yeah, I know. Well, we have to have our token heterosexual.
Yeah.
Everyone persecute him.
Yeah.
Quickly.
I just can't believe that. Well, we already are being persecuted because Drake won't give us an opportunity to introduce ourselves and our stories.
So Sokka, when did you choose to be straight?
Yes, Sokka.
Grade 3, found my dad's penthouse. After that, it was pretty much set in stone. Just like open it up, liked what I saw. Was like, yeah, I can work with this.
Throw him from a building.
So what you're saying is that child abuse, early exposure to sexuality from your father made you heterosexual?
Absolutely.
See what you did there.
Well, I wouldn't phrase it like that, but yeah, pretty much in a nutshell. Yeah, that would be it. Yeah.
That's interesting because you don't see that argument being made, though. I mean, we laugh and we're kind of like lampooning it, but if that is the general line of thought that, well, homosexuality is this specter that just kind of creeps up on folks when you have a chance encounter with a penis that you just so happen to like, well, then what makes you straight? Then? Like, right? There's a set of boobs that you just so happen to see one day. You go, you know what? I can get between those.
That's not actually the argument, Dragnot. The argument that they present is that, oh, you're homosexual because you were abused by a homosexual, which ultimately reduces down to a catch-22.
Right. Well, and to be fair, I mean, again, another unpopular thing. When you talk to transgender people, especially, usually they've been raped. When you talk to bisexuals and Christians, oftentimes they've had some sort of physical abuse or sexual assault. So I do think that is interesting, but I think that could be a catalyst towards intimacy, and it doesn't just manufacture attraction.
One of the interesting things that I see along those lines is that everyone becomes a neurobiologist when it comes to that type of scenario. The one that you just mentioned, Holy Spackle, because I think, was it you or was it someone else tried to mention that in G-Man's Hangout? It might have been Xavier, that there's quite a bit of neurobiology that goes into especially trans individuals, and of course there's a genetic aspect that goes into homosexuality that's being explored, but no one's saying that either one of those there's a hard and fast that goes along with that. It's what helps determine or could potentially help determine what someone's sexual orientation is.
Okay.
And so, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I want this to say something to that. I was sexually abused by my elder cousin. So my sexuality was gay at first, okay, and I know it's different for everybody else. And so what my experience was that I thought I liked men. That was it. I was a man that I liked men. That was it. And during that period of time, when later on in life, when I was around 17, 18 years old, when it stopped, the sexual abuse was stopped. I started looking into my sexuality at the time. And later on, I found that either I was polysexual, pansexual, there was different terms. And now there's more different terms that I might mention. That later on I found that, I liked men. I was trans. I'm a trans woman that, I like men. And then I found out that, I liked men that were transitioning into women, or women that were transitioning to men. I like that too. Yeah, I just like to think that the whole term with, how that became about was, it was how the person felt at the time and then progressed after time.
You talk about the abuse. I had a similar situation with, ironically, an older cousin as well. He was sexually abused me as a very young child. And I remember at one point thinking that this, I guess, was normal. This is what you're supposed to do with I remember with other friends trying to introduce them into it, because I just thought, when you're in 4th grade or 5th grade and someone who is 16, 17, 18 years old introduced you to it, you think is normal. It only was until I got older realizing that it was started becoming really confusing. It was a problem for me for a long time, trying to figure out the direction for me to figure out what's normal.
Yeah. And, I was also threatened by my cousin who lived with me, my grandma and my auntie, for years, for my life. And still to this day, I am threatened for my life to tell the story that ever since then, when I was 6 years old, that I was sexually abused by my cousin. I thought that it was normal at the time. I thought that this was something that, men and women do, and, at the time when I was 7, I thought it was, it was okay. It was comfortable. And unfortunately at the time, I decided to do something with my best friend. And later on, the very same day, I knew it was wrong because I was abused by my mother and my mom's boyfriend, who was my stepfather. And it was very horrible and traumatic for me that, I could never tell my mom or my dad what my cousin did to me, what my cousin, sexually abused me, because he threatened my life. He threatened to kill me if I told anyone about this. And when I tried to engage sex with the same sex, later on, it was wrong. I was abused. I was physically hurt in ways that no one can imagine a beating in life. And it was very hard. And I can understand where you're coming from with this.
Well, the one thing I want to make sure you understand and don't let anybody ever tell you you're a weak person, because to go through what you went through and still come out to be able to sit here and talk about it on a chat, I don't know, you're probably about one of the strongest people I've ever met, type deal, because that's incredible. And, being abused too, the one up I always have is that, did your dad ever throw his false teeth at you? Because that's also fun to try to dodge.
Yes.
When an upper and a lower come flowing at you. He had nothing to hit me with, and he just took his teeth out and threw it at me.
Wait, people throw their teeth? That's a thing?
Well, that was his thing. He couldn't find anything to hit me with, so he just took out his teeth and threw them at me.
Yeah. My father is an alcoholic, and you know what? It's been hard.
My dad was just an asshole.
I would have taken his teeth and put it in the toilet.
It's been hard for years, ever since, trying to get him to quit. He keeps on calling me my dead name, and I promise you from here on after, I will never say my dead name. He would keep on calling me my dead name until I, tell him dead in the face, my name is this. This is who I am now. This is who I was made to be. This is who I'm, you see me dress up in dresses and skirts and makeup and all this stuff, and he knows this, because when I was small and I was little, when I was watching Little Mermaid and, all that stuff, I used to be in makeup. I used to eat shrimp, all those things that Ursula did. I was a woman.
Poor Sebastian.
A girl. And I was in dress. I was in a dress. I was in a skirt. Those type of things. When I was little, I used to dress up those things. My dad thought it was a phase. When those older generations, they think it was a phase. But now as I'm older, I'm 21 years old. My dad is 30-something years old, and I tell him, even when he's drunk, even when he's an alcoholic, he's drunk, and I tell him, this is my name now. This is legal. This is I am Eravine Lucinda Ethier. This is my name. And no matter how many times I try to tell him, and my mother, for that matter of fact, I try to tell them this is me and my family. I try to tell them this is me. They still don't get it. They still call me by my dead name. They still call me by the other name. And you know what? It takes a long time for me to accept that, okay, this is what my name was before. And it takes a while for me to them accept, but they should still know that, okay, there's a period of time when, I can accept when this is acceptable, when you can say my dead name. But when my legal name now, this is when you have to start saying it. And this is when it becomes very difficult for me.
But you may have to accept that they may never, call you by the name you have now. Sometimes people don't change. Hopefully they do. But I was going to back up a minute. Y'all were talking about cousins. Well, I had an older cousin. He was a big boy too. It was me that made the move.
Oh dear.
I found out later there was a word for me.
Heavy.
I'm an aggressive bottom.
Did you just call yourself an aggressive bottom?
I'm sorry, what?
Yes.
We're learning terms here, folks. Take note.
Yeah.
Tommy
it was-
Hall is definitely taking notes right now.
It was me on Oh boy, I hadn't told anyone that one.
So you were twerking.
Huh?
So it's heavy. You were twerking.
No, twerking. Oh no.
Would you describe yourself as a power bottom?
No, I'll just say aggressive. Yeah.
I think I guess the term that me since we're sharing, me and Mrs. Dragnot use is throwing it back.
You back it up. Is that what?
Yes, backs it up.
Specifically, drag backs it up.
No.
Oh my gosh! Sometimes.
Well, she had I've bent over. I bent over trying to find something, and so she will imitate me and get a big gruff voice and try and grab me by the handles, and then basically imitate me. And so I just kind of sit there, and so I'll play along and exaggerate. Oh, and go ah, and I'll just start yelling hysterically. She didn't do that, but I do that just to mess with her. I don't sound like that. I don't sound like that.
That is a fucked up scenario to have to explain to your son if he walks in.
Oh God.
You're just wrestling. That's what I used.
Well, we try to keep the midget away from all that stuff. We wait till he's well asleep.
Yeah,
the door is locked.
Yeah, you forget once in a while. One time that happens. You know, you don't think about it. You forget for a second, and next thing you know,
my brother was about the age of 12 before he realized why it was that my parents' door had a lock on it.
Yeah. You want to talk about killing a heart on instantly is when you hear, "Dad, what are you doing?" And that was it.
Yeah, well, he did catch us once or twice, but usually have the covers up, so it's wrestling, because we normally wrestle. Like, she'll come and sit on me while I'm sitting on the recliner, and so play wrestle with her. So it's easy to kind of shift since you're already there. And I usually walk around half naked anyway, so it's not like it's nothing new.
I just got this image of Drake just suplexing his wife for some reason. Flying over from the top rope.
One of the most awkward moments that I remember when I was a teenager. I was 16, and I went over. We were going to play some old school Nintendo with a coworker, and we're sitting in his living room, and his parents had come home, and we're playing, I don't know, Adventure Island, and then all of a sudden we start hearing. For like 45 minutes. It's like, your dad is a stallion.
Yeah, I never had that experience of walking in or even catching my parents, and I couldn't even think to myself right now the time where my dad even held my mom's hand, let alone catch them having sex.
Yeah, my mom had offered her very curt explanation of marriage and marital coitus, and I forget the context of the conversation, but I'll never forget her describing, well, as a wife, you do what you can in a relationship. When he wants it, you lay there and let him do what he needs to do, and then she just she continued with the conversation, just so the fact that it was so matter of fact for her. And I'm like, at the back of my head, you just lay there? Is that what you do? You just lay there? Oh, okay.
I would like to mention something. When I was little, I actually walked out of my crib, and I walked into my mom's room at the time, and her boyfriend. Um, I walked in and on her, and him doing it for a split second, and that's unfortunately all I can remember at this moment. And
They were
now
just
I
wrestling.
can. What?
They were just wrestling.
Sure, Nicola. Yeah, they were just wrestling. That's what she told me at the time, but I know what they were doing.
They were wrestling with a ping pong paddle. Hey, that's what my parents always said to me.
The ping pong, it's creative.
That answers so many more questions than you think it does, Ranger.
That's what I always said to them. I said, that's kind of creates more question than answers, but all right, I'm walking away.
Mom, Dad, I had a bad dream. Can I sleep in your bed tonight? Get the fuck out of here.
Mom, Dad, what's the ping pong paddle doing in bed?
Wait a minute, that's my ping pong paddle. What's going on here?
What's that vibrating noise?
Oh, I was at work once, and I had my my electronic toothbrush in the drawer. I closed the drawer, and the electronic toothbrush went off, and you could hear them vibrating against the metal door. And everybody just stood and looked at me, and I said, "It's a toothbrush, honest. It's a toothbrush."
Mommy, why is my toothbrush wet?
Oh dear.
You had to say that. And what you brought to mind was a fun fact about Kinsey, the guy who did the sex study on the American culture, basically. Was he conditioned himself to being able to stick things within his urethra. And among those were pencils and a toothbrush bristles first.
Come again. I
Sounds
could
like a
not get
typical
over
funny
the
man.
whole vibrator brush stuff, but you know, the whole pencil thing, you know, I'm clueless about that. You know, do you stick the sharp end in first or the eraser?
Sounds like a typical Friday night at the
hey.
Playboy Mansion.
I got a great idea. Let's change the topic to something else.
Hey, you know how they used to cure syphilis in men? Never mind.
Good night, everybody.
Imagine a little umbrella.
The pipe cleaning, yeah, that's awful.
Oh God. Okay, so the topic change. All right. So since we want to talk about intimacy, now we're not talking about just doing the dirty coitus, however you may do it or not do it. What is something in your romantic partner, whomever they may be, that is that key thing that they must have? And I want to start the opposite end from my screen. So, Holy Spackle, what would be something that your furry man beast of a husband, that's something that he had to have for you to be with him in holy matrimony? Take
Well,
your
that's
time.
a good question. I would think that empathy would be a requirement for sure. Like being able to have some sort of empathy, and maybe a drive for trying to do the moral good. I mean, these are things that I look for in a requirement of friendship per se. And then attraction wise, that is a good question.
And we can come back.
Yeah, come back to that.
Okay. All right. So next on my screen is a sock account. So here you go, sock account. Okay. You cannot say big tits. That is not an acceptable answer in this hangout.
Drake, you know me so well. That was my go-to initial response.
Okay. Okay. You can go ahead and say it then.
well, the first thing that I look for in a woman is me. No, no.
Bravo.
Thank you. Oh, geez, I don't know. Like, I think that the only way that only reason why my wife and I have stayed together for 10 years, 10 years now, right?
Because we have kids.
Is because we have kids.
I love how you had to ask.
And because you moved me like 3 provinces away from home.
Yeah, well, the first thing I had to do was isolate her from her family. As I had to ship her halfway across the country.
Mhm.
Yeah, and that way she didn't have a support network to fall back on, so she was kind of dependent on me.
So you lured her in by wearing a uniform.
Yeah. Well, I lured her in with my charm and my uniform. First off, one of the worst pickup lines ever.
Free drinks.
Yeah, I did buy you drinks. I got you nice and liquored up that first night. I don't know. It's just patience. Like really, like I'm not an easy person to live with. If my wife wasn't as patient as she is, this would have been over a long time ago.
I'm happy you acknowledge that.
Thank you.
Okay, that's a pretty good answer. You definitely need patience.
Bed, right?
Ooh, I like that answer. Nicola, you next, sir?
They would have to love animals. If they don't, they can die. I don't care.
Fair enough. What I know about you, I know that's actually pretty true. So, yeah, I see that. All right. Midnight Sparkle, your ideal mate, what would they have to have?
Well, I mean, they wouldn't have to be, okay, intelligence. So Ronnie and G-Man, sorry, you're not my type.
Fair enough. Fair enough. You're out the running. Jade. Jade, I think I know her as Jade. Go ahead.
Yep. Okay, I would say a sense of humor, intelligence, the ability to argue without getting angry. I'm talking about not argue about petty things, but the ability to have a good discussion about something. And the other thing is to just be the kind of person that can just be comfortable together. One of the things that I enjoy a lot is to be able to be in the same room with someone and you're reading your book and they're reading their book and you're just comfortable together. And every once in a while you take a break and you talk about your books. And then you go back and just that ability to be quiet and comfortable and at ease.
That.
Being a bibliophile is definitely on that list. Definitely. Okay. And next is Heavy.
Well, besides looking like Orgrim from the Warcraft movie, wow. That they love to cuddle and have a warped sense of humor. I mean, cuddling. I mean, forget the sex. I mean, sex is great, but cuddling is just, oh man, that's just so much fun. And it's a way of being intimate without really doing anything. You're just enjoying being, curled up with each other, maybe watching a movie or listening to the radio or listening to music or something like that.
Yeah, you read Mrs. Dragnot's mind. That's she loves cuddling. She loves putting my arm to sleep. That's her specialty. And who is, I forgot his name. Shit. Okay. Baptized in Fire. Oh, there we go. I had to click on you. No, it's not Poopy Head. Shut up. Okay. Baptized in Fire. Are you there?
Yep.
Okay.
So long ago. It's 24 years of marriage so far. The one thing I was a firefighter when I met my wife. So one of the important things for me as far as finding somebody was someone I knew could be strong and independent because I was gone a lot and not have to, something should happen, I might not be around to be able to handle it. So she needed to be that. And understanding was big for me because let's face it, when I came home sometimes I was tired, I wanted to sleep, and just having the understanding that that what I'm doing was a huge passion of mine, and to be able to understand what I was going through on certain situations was huge.
Very fair, very fair. All right, what about you, Atheist Ranger?
Definitely a sense of humor, because that's my best quality in my opinion. Like if you can make me laugh, that's a turn on. The person would have to be a talker, because I don't talk a lot, period. And as always, she would have to have a nice heart-shaped ass. That's all.
Very fair, very fair. You and Isaiah Sloan would get along very, very well.
Oh yes, we do.
All right, Aravine, how about you?
Okay. Well, I'd like to say stealth. More like quiet move. Of course, they also like to love animals as well as I do, and I don't know. I like a little bit of humorous stuff in there as well.
Okay, so I guess I'll give mine. So I would say, well, the younger me would say definitely big tits, but no, that's the younger me. I have to look for something inside. Because physical attraction is very important. That's why Mrs. Dragnot looks 10 times better than me. So one of the things that I do value about Mrs. Dragnot, and she has asked me this, is, well, that basic question, well, why are you with me? Her ability to learn and grow and her general curiosity is something that I needed, because I could not be with someone who wants to be complacent, wants to be stagnant, who doesn't want to build and grow. I definitely needed someone who is a gamer and an anime fan, so she's definitely both of those. She actually owns more games than me, believe it or not. Somebody who has a very open mind, and for those of you who know Mrs. Dragnot, she is not an atheist, and she is very open to, discuss very complex and nuanced topics at her leisure, but does not like to be forced, into any box. She wants to be what she considers a free spirit, and that is something I admire about her. That and her general kind of defiance, and so that defiance is something that I also very much admire in her. What I forgot. Oh yeah, Holy came in later. So, Holy Spackle, one of the things that I was asking people earlier, while you were toying around with the brain trust, the title, well, I guess the previous title to the hangout that G-Man had hosted was the malformed question about what benefits homosexuality serves in society. And I'm not sure if we ever got a distinction on whether he meant homosexual acts or whether the relationship between two consenting adults of the same sex were somehow beneficial. Did you ever get clarification on that?
No, I didn't. I didn't ask for the clarification on that. I didn't think about it, but that is a good question. And he seemed to oscillate a bit between those.
Right.
I would argue that the benefit would be similar to a benefit of a non-reproducing couple. That psychological well-being and health would prevent a more productive individual in your community, a happier individual. We have a strong desire. Most of us have a strong desire for human connection and intimacy, and I don't necessarily mean the mechanics of physicality, but intimacy. Like, do you see me? Do you accept who I am? Do you love me anyway? Can you say me too, or I understand? These are very basic human qualities of needing intimacy or physical touch. And I think that I guess I would say it benefits society in as far as psychological well-being.
Okay. So let me actually move on to Heavy. Did you get a chance to see his previous hangout about what I just mentioned?
No, I didn't see it, but I'm thinking that is such a stupid question.
Yes.
I mean, that's like me going, well, what benefit do redheads give to society, or what benefit, or whatever do straight couples give to society or something? It's a stupid question.
So malformed too.
Seriously, I mean,
bigoted.
we work, we earn our money. Some of us work really hard for our money, but we pay our taxes. We help other people when we can. We're no different from people that are freaking straight. Pardon my.
See,
whatever. We contribute to society just like straight people do. However you want to qualify that. We can give to charities. We can give our free time to help people. I'm in a group of atheists now that get together and give out things to the homeless. We get donations of clothing and bedding and
how evil of you, Heavy.
Toothbrush, toothpaste, shoes, whatever. To help homeless people.
There is something that has to qualify.
That's how we benefit, or how we benefit society, or whatever. But it's no different from what straight people do in churches or whatever. They help homeless people and they give out stuff.
But you sleep with them right after, right, Javi?
Huh?
You sleep with them right after, right, Javi?
No.
Really?
Dangle a sandwich above their head and go like, look.
I haven't seen any big old bears. I might do it. I ain't gonna tell.
If you're homeless and starving for food, you're probably not a bear.
No, but really though, I mean, it's a stupid question. I already said that. Why should he even go there? I mean, they have so many misconceptions about gay people and lesbians and trans people. I mean, it's like saying gays are pedophiles. What? I mean, I don't get the correlation there. Do they feel so threatened by us that they have to accuse us of something like that?
Yes.
You talk about misconceptions. That's one of the big ones right there that really, really gets under my skin.
Well, Heavy, need I remind you that Ted Haggard is completely heterosexual.
Oh, really, honey?
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you've not seen that song, you should look it up.
Yeah, Ted Haggard was on Larry King back when Larry King still existed.
Yeah.
And freaking they were talking to Jennifer Knapp, who was an evangelical Christian that came out, and they were trying to talk her out of being a lesbian. And they brought in Ted Haggard.
Buddy.
Oh, I love Ted Haggard so much. He was the pro-family, anti-gay, anti-drug minister and White House advisor. And he was caught smoking crystal meth while having sex with a gay prostitute and cheating on his wife.
Yeah, it's like
the ones that scream the loudest are the ones that, got the.
Well, he didn't really so much scream as bite into the pillow.
And by the way, Larry King's still out there. The Crypt Keeper will never die.
It's like there are a lot of gays and lesbians that you wouldn't know that they were gay or lesbian. I mean, they lead normal, everyday lives just like everybody else, except, their choice of, their sleeping partners is different, or the same sex.
See, that's
it's crazy.
That's what I wanted to tell G-Man about. Like, okay, so if you go to a doctor and he saves your life or whatever, you find out he's gay, and you're gonna hate him for it. He saved your life.
Well, G-Man's question is, what benefit does homosexuality give to society? And that's just stupid.
Yeah, exactly.
If you just consider like, oh, I'm attracted to men, what benefit is that to society just in and of itself? Not considering anything else, just that attraction. Well, nothing. It's neutral. The same thing with heterosexuality.
Yeah, the one thing I did bring up and to them is the point that, a lot of gay people adopt, straight people throw away.
Yeah, but it's not homosexuality benefiting society.
Yeah.
That's just people. That's an argument that I never understood, which was the whole, like the arguments against gay marriage and stuff was, oh, you're depriving them of a mother and a father. So, okay, they're not going to have a mother and a father regardless of how you vote on this.
Well, and there are a lot of single parent families, and in every homosexual couple I've known, these children, they've made sure that there were, you know, opposite sex people, good people in the lives of their children. It's not like you're isolated. It's not like, you know, if you know, Bobby has two dads, that he's only ever going to have male influences in his life. His dads have, you know, sisters and cousins and mothers and grandmothers and friends. It's just stupid. And plus, what does that say about all the single parents in the world?
Well, we should take their kids away.
Yeah, obviously, because, you know, they've only got one parent. I mean, my goodness. You know, how can you have a balanced childhood if you only have one parent? I mean, you know, the fact that so many of them have come out just fine, it doesn't mean anything. It just, yeah. And what about all those single people who are heterosexual who adopt children? Maybe that should be stopped too, because those children are only getting one experiences of one sex. That doesn't make sense either.
What got me about when the gay marriage things first started coming up is like you get this stuff from like the fundies or whatever about, oh no, they're going to ruin straight marriage or something like that. How?
They're going to see how much fun the gay marriages are, and they're going to go out and get one.
I love my dad's reasoning about that, which he said, my mom asked him, like, oh, how do you feel about gay marriage? My dad goes, if they want to get married and be miserable like everyone else, let them.
That's a pretty progressive view.
Like the problem is that if gay marriage wasn't legal, then all the gay guys would go out and marry all the girls, and I can't keep up with those bods.
Yeah,
like
I don't have a chance. Steal your girlfriends.
Yeah, I don't have a chance against.
There's
a gay
actually
guy.
a video.
We are literally all of your weaknesses.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's. Have you seen that video about that? That's a great video. We will steal your girlfriends. You know, because how is the straight guy going to be able to compete with the gay guy who understands fashion and can cook and has a great body and is compassionate and will listen to you, let you cry on their shoulder? Yeah, straight men would be totally lost there.
You guys do brunch, like seriously?
Yeah. Oh, I love brunch.
I mean, like the biggest threat I could see would be if a gay couple came into a family's house and said, "Oh, honey, those curtains just have to go, and we got to redo the living room, and that rug is no, that's a no, you know." Are you call this a deal?
So the biggest threat is basically to go queer eye for the straight guy.
Well, I think it's interesting because now that more and more people are able to be open and committed, there's less of the shenanigans that everybody's complaining about. Like, not everybody, but the Christian right. Look at homosexuals and bisexuals. They sleep around. They're super promiscuous. They keep passing around diseases. They're party animals. Oh, look at this debauchery and orgies, and their minds just kind of spiral into like, oh, it's just like Rome all over again. And there's more and more people that are kind of conservative. They you know, have the picket fence. They have a kid. They have a committed couple. They're a model citizen, a model neighbor. And I think that's a threat. I think people feel threatened by that.
That makes no sense, though. Like, the only way that you could feel threatened would be if you're tempted by it.
Feel threatened because they think A, it's contagious, so to speak, and B, it's normalizing, and they're losing their podium of saying, well, this is what these people do, and they feel like it's
yeah,
a little bit
back to the whole recruitment idea. you catch homosexuality or you're taught how to be homosexual.
Yeah, the limp wrist brigade. You just, once you see a flyer, that's it. You touch it, and that's it. You laugh, but the guys used to talk about that back when I was in high
God.
school. Oh, he'll be walking around with a limp wrist.
In
And I'm
all
like,
fairness, this is a real problem because we don't know how gay spreads yet. And
AIDS. Could be airborne. You never know.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, if
Drag, I'm going to
are
send
walking
you a
around with
terrible
mask,
joke privately.
But I mean, a lot of that weird, I guess, not as antiquated views about homosexuality that ended up, being spread by quite a few. I call them vehicles. One of them was, I think, what was that? It was a game called Smear the Queer. I don't know how many people are familiar with that game?
That's a great game. It's just a terrible name.
Yeah, I mean it's rugby for all the supposedly straight folks who want to tackle other men, but it was I came across that in the. I just read this joke. It's funny because it's true. I'm sorry, but yeah, I lost my train of thought. Yeah, no, but a lot of these really weird, I guess, taboo things that I'm trying to remember as a kid. Yeah, and one of the things I came across was Smear the Queer, where you could acquire the gay, which was in the form of like a football or basketball or something, and then once you got it, then everyone had to kind of chase you, and then you could acquire it then, and somebody else. It was almost like a communicable disease. And looking back at it, I really didn't think too much of it, other than, well, this is an odd name for a game. We're gonna be physically rough with each other, and it seems like a really masculine game, but we're calling it queer, so it was very, very confusing at that time for me. But I think it's just one of those one of those oddities that kind of crops up from people's misunderstanding of gender and sexuality and sexual orientation. Sorry, I had to keep pausing my headset. I'm trying to put the little one into bed.
Yeah.
Even if I'm getting too far away from the computer. Okay. That should be good. I gave him his iPad. There we go.
One thing about this, where they say that we choose our lifestyle. It's like, why would we choose to live a way where we can be ridiculed by other people, called names, beaten, get fired, and even killed because of what we are? Why would we choose?
We call them masochists.
That's great.
Bad joke. Yep, bad taste.
I don't know. I think it's easy for people to say that if they've never struggled with or any identity. I don't think they can really relate, because you hear how callously many of them talk about sexuality, and it's really telling that they've not, I guess, had any friends who have had any type of identity crisis, especially ones dealing with their sexual orientation, or just trying to identify who they are in the grand scheme of things. And for me, I've always valued having input from people from different walks of life, because I know that I only live within one distinct section of the many possible ones that can exist for what we consider humanity. And if I am to truly be a learned individual, I'm going to need to encounter people from these different walks of life and actually listen to them, and not just hear what they're saying, but to try and peer a little bit deeper into who they are, and not just ascribe different qualities to them that I think are intuitive, because I can't think like a gay man. I can't think like a woman. I sure as hell can't think like a woman. I know I can't think like a woman. I'm placing an emphasis on this to give guys hints when you get married. Don't try to think like a woman, because you won't win. It is you can't. It's you can't win. You cannot win, and it is very telling when I hear guys talk as if they understand women perfectly, and then of course they know the gays and they know the lesbians and they know this, that, and the other, and it's like, no, you barely know your fucking self, dude. Pull your head out of your ass and consider the fact that from your perspective, you are sitting atop of this high horse that has been propped up by whatever religious doctrine you think that you understand, or whatever experience you may have been, gifted from, an whatever happenstance scenario, right? But even with my experiences, I don't think that I still will truly understand another person until I've lived their life, and then having that. Okay, Nicola. I don't think that I will ever understand just even the basics of what it's like to be a woman, much less like a gay man or a lesbian, until one day I transform into one. So giving people that respect, I think is very very important.
Oh gosh, that was something I used to hear. I hadn't heard it in a long time. Was like some people say, like gay men. Well, oh, you just want to be a woman. I'm like, what? I'm thinking to myself,
Yeah.
I'm quite
I've heard
happy
that.
with all of my male attributes.
But that was part of the problem, is especially 20 years ago, is that you think of someone who is a homosexual as feminine, and guys with that mentality, they were afraid to be called a woman. They were afraid to be called feminine. They were afraid of all that aspects. Versus, I see you, Heavy, and it's I wouldn't even think of I see the stuff behind you, and there's but there's just that stigma of limp wristed and very feminine acting and things like that, that contribute, that's a blanket across homosexuality for males. And a lot of guys, especially 20 years ago, were afraid that that sensitivity part, or that be macho type deal.
Well, I mean, there's like guys that are straight and they act effeminate.
Mm-hmm.
But
Let me give
they're
them a name,
not.
metrosexual, and that's okay.
I mean,
but
they just someone would be around them and say, "Oh, well, they're gay." No, they're not. They're like full blown heterosexual. Give me all the whatever I can get, and I got kids and grandkids, and I want some more.
You got to look at which ear they have pierced at that point. If anyone remembers that stupid ass stereotype.
What was
Yes,
that?
I remember that.
Say that again.
What ear was pierced?
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Yeah, that was funny. Well, yeah, and it's the same as like
I didn't know, so I just had them both pierced all the way up, so I figured I was safe no matter what.
I know Arn Raw has a good story about that, because what was the stereotype that if your right ear was pierced, you were gay. If your left ear was pierced, you were a drug dealer.
Yeah.
And he's like, I happen to know a gay drug dealer, and he didn't have either of his ears pierced.
Well, and to what has been said before, is I've known a lot of rather butch heterosexual women. I've also known a number of men who like butch heterosexual women. Women who will, women who will, play sports, go hunting, fishing, and camping, and of course, not all women who like those things are necessarily rather butch, but these women, and more of that. So it's you can't automatically tell whether someone's gay just because if they seem very masculine or feminine. Go ahead. What, Heavy?
Oh, I was just going to say my partner, he knew a couple. It was just this guy and this woman that got married, And she knew as much or more about fixing fixing washing machines than her husband did. I mean, they would work on things together, you know, get greasy together and stuff. And you think,
yeah,
you think, wait a minute, what's going on here? Why is she doing that? She's got to be, you know, a dyke or something like that. No, she just liked doing stuff like that.
Yeah.
And they had like 3 or 4 kids, you know, and he couldn't be happier that they had an interest like that, where they could get together and just break down an engine and clean it and put it back together and stuff. He was in
I
hog
knew
heaven.
some.
My wife's
I knew
into
some
cars, and you know, she does a lot of the maintenance around the house and stuff. And you know, mostly it's because I'm lazy and I like to sleep, but she enjoys all that stuff. So I'm like, perfect. You know, I don't got to do it. That's the way I look at it. You know, I'm perfectly happy with all that. You know, I got a question about a car or whatnot, I'll ask her. If she wants to, you know, fix something up in the house and do construction, go right ahead. You know, I don't care. I don't got to do it. I'm happy with that.
Yeah, I've known some biker couples who, you know, male or female, they could tear down and put back a motorcycle completely. I can remember going over to someone's house one time and motorcycle in the middle of the room on a tarp because they were taking it apart and fixing it together. So it's just, yeah, you can't make assumptions. And then there are, like Kevin said, there are men who seem very effeminate and yet they, you know, they love fashion. They love, you know, decorating, and yet they're completely heterosexual. I knew a guy like that once very well. Preferred all the feminine side of things. What you normally think of. He loved fashion. He loved decorating. He loved cooking. Straight as could be.
Seinfeld episode?
He sounds French.
No, not French.
There's that Seinfeld episode where they thought Jerry was gay because he was, you know, single and clean, you know, type deal.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a weird ass stereotype to have. Oh, he's clean.
Yeah.
Gay.
He's neat.
There was a test one time. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
There was a test one time. It was something like, you know, take this test to see if you're gay or have any attributes of gay men or whatever. So I'm looking at it and I'm checking stuff off. I completely failed. I was as straight as an arrow because I don't like musicals. I have no Barbara Streisand records. I don't know anything about interior decorating. Can't cook worth nothing. Fashion, you know, I'm wearing T-shirts and jeans or cutoffs or something. You know, scraggly beard.
I was just thinking, it's like
any of that. I'm like, well, dang, I must be straight then, huh?
it's like oh yeah, I once did a test to see if I was gay, and you know, just like there's like a web page just pulls up a giant picture of a dick. Yeah, what do you think? Well, it's okay. You're gay.
We actually had that, Saka, as part of the RCMP in the military. It was literally called the fruit machine, and it was a test to see if applicants were gays or lesbians.
Oh, God. Well, I was going to say that stereotypes are just weird, period. For a lot of stereotypes, there is some truth embedded in them, which is how they became stereotypes. But they're just so, in some cases, they're just so strange. Growing up,
Asian women are bad drivers.
The weirdest stereotype that I've heard was women can't make as good a music as men.
Well, or Asians are bad drivers. I never, growing up in Southern California and family from the Midwest, I never understood the whole thing about black people and watermelon.
I still don't understand it.
Dude, check it out. One of my best friends is black, and also we know all conversations start out like this. And I was playing World of Warcraft, and she was a healer, and I was a healer too, and she was a druid healer, which means she heals the entire raid. And there's 25 people depending on the healers to keep them alive. And we had this raid plan for the week, and all of a sudden, she chimes in on, at the time we had Ventrilo, because it was old school, and she says, "Be right back. Mom brought home chicken. I gotta go. And she left the raid and everybody died.
Was it Nerdly?
Sorry?
Well, yeah, that's
What's your name, Nerdly?
Well, I could kind of understand
Yeah,
the fried chicken thing because traditionally we're centered in the South, and fried chicken's really big in the South. Never got the watermelon thing. Have no clue where that came from. However, I've seen a bunch of old.
Chicken and waffles.
I don't get chicken and waffles at all. Anyway,
Chicken and waffles is good. You go to the right soul place.
Yeah. But I mean, I've seen a lot of really old like advertisements and things like that with the exaggerated figures of Black Americans eating watermelon and stuff like that. I don't know where that comes from. That's one that puzzles me. I haven't a clue where that one comes from.
I have no idea either. I just think it's funny because there are other, actually offensive stereotypes, but that one I like to play with, and I think it was 13 Heathens Minecraft server. I don't know if you guys heard the story where it was me. I think Hitless Chicken was playing. 13 Heathens, and it's a couple other people, and so Headless Chicken, I think together with 13 Heathens, made a machine that produced fried chicken and watermelon for me because I didn't know how to actually get the food that my character needed, and so my character survived on a diet of chicken and watermelon until I could figure it out. I thought it was hilarious, but yeah, the chicken and waffle. I don't know where it came from, but it's a hit down here in Houston. In fact, my cousin, of course, the one that I called on the phone, the cop, when I was in trouble with the authorities, via Ronnie, he had a chicken and waffle catering for his wedding, and that same caterer actually comes up to my school every other week.
Get that syrup on there. That's
and so when me and Mrs. Dragnet came to pick me up one day, I was like, "Hey, did you eat anything?" No, so we got some chicken and waffles and brought it home.
Good.
So yeah, that was a good day. But yeah, the stereotypes are funny, especially ones about gays and lesbians and trans individuals. That I mean, they trying to find the source of them is funny, but trying to find people who adamantly stick by them is even funnier. Hold on, it says
I never understood the fried chicken thing. I mean, like, if there's like one food to be associated with, like fried chicken, like you're doing pretty good because fried chicken fucking rocks.
Oh, it does. I'm trying to read the chat here. So a while back you were live streaming and your black neighbor friend Kramered you through the door and told you fried chicken was on sale. Oh, no. That was my brother. That was my gay brother, actually. If he was in, I think, yeah, he was in Scrubs. That was my gay brother. Yeah. And he's a big food addict like myself. So he knows where all the deals are. Yeah, that was my brother. Actually, who will be here tomorrow. And he knows about I think he was telling me about Popeyes or something like that when they run a sale. Yeah, I almost forgot about that. Oh man, this hangout just went everywhere. My goodness. Okay, how long have we been running?
I don't know.
Okay, let me see. I might just go ahead and call it here and just leave the off air.
Yeah, I think.
I have a question. Am I racist, Drag? You gotta tell me the truth. You ready?
Uh-huh.
I played Star Wars for a little bit with my WoW buddies, and we had a guild in WoW, and so then we made a guild in Star Wars to try it, and we named our guild Lando's Chicken and Waffles. Is that bigoted?
You gave Lando credit where credit was due. So you were not appropriating his culture, and you gave him proper credit. So I don't see a problem with it. I think That's not even like near the most offensive thing that I've heard. One of the funnier ones was Naga stole my bike.
Yeah.
I've seen that in every game. Naga stole. I mean, it's old now, but yeah, when I first saw it, I died laughing. That was Then there's creepy ones like "Sapped girls can't say no."
Oh yeah.
Yeah, that was like it's okay. Somebody's not getting a date without hypnol.
She said she was level 18.
Yeah, that was good. There's actually been some really creative ones.
Before I joined more progressive guild, ours was 2 gnomes, 1 goblet.
That's so nasty, but it's funny. Oh man.
I'm sorry to Sabella. She's kind of disappeared. I think I made Bruce mad because I timed him out.
Look, yeah, what was going? I saw Bruce saying something in the chat.
Oh, he's trying to troll.
Bruce?
Yeah.
Oh.
So I teased him back and put him on pause, and then I don't know, they disappeared.
He'll be okay.
He'll be fine. The part I like, excuse me, I'm yawning, is where Sabella was telling him to cut it out. And she goes, "I know where you sleep."
Yeah, no, that's Mrs. Drag's usual threat. I know where you sleep. And that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. That's definitely
Yeah.
her threat.
Scott always just wonders why the hell I'm talking to everybody. He doesn't really have the energy to deal with it. He's just like, I just believe what I believe, and the other part is like he'll overhear me in some hangout where I'm talking to like a flat earth-ish situation or something, and he just makes these faces at me like, what the heck is this? And if I really want to get a reaction from Scott, oh my gosh, all I have to do is turn on Shanny for Christ, and he's like, what the heck is this?
I love Shani's channel. When she's doing a gaming video, like her stream of consciousness is hilarious. And then she says stuff. I don't think she realizes some of the stuff that she says, and you just pick up on it. And it's like, oh man, that's wonderful.
Man, my entire
I'm not allowed
office
to,
has listened to that whole Captain Morgan's clip of hers.
I'm not allowed to if G-Man comes into a video that I'm watching or like a hangout or anything like that, I have to have my headset in because my wife can't stand it.
Oh, she can't. Mrs. Drag likes to
because as my wife puts it, he's an idiot.
Oh well, yeah, I could understand because some people you have to have a tolerance for that. It's like your favorite alcohol, but it's just a little too alcoholic, so you can't accidentally overdose. But Mrs. Drag likes to just peruse because she has like 3 or 4 sock accounts I found out, and so she'll be in the chat, just chatting with folks, and then of course she'll be on Mrs. Drag interacting with people. But when she feels antisocial, she'll be on her sock accounts, just kind of. Yeah.
I have a question, and excuse my ignorance, but I'm new to all this. What's a sock account?
That's your secondary account. Like I have Sock
That's my
account's
primary
actual account is his primary account, so he's the only one. But if you have a secondary account, let's say like when G-Man gets upset and his asshole has filled with sand and starts blocking people, and you still want to say something in the chat, something relevant, you make another YouTube account and then just use that one.
Oh, okay. I figured, but I wasn't sure that it had any other special meaning to it.
It's the spare sock that you have in your drawer.
So real talk. I have a sock account that was made before this real account was made. It's older, and it's a male. I pose as a male, and I pose as a certain theological disposition, and I am treated so much differently than I am in my regular account. It's very interesting. Like, I say some pretty mean, heartless things as a fundamentalist might take, and I'm lauded and applauded and respected because I'm male and because I say the right things. So it is really interesting, and I did it as sort of an experiment to see if I'm male, would I come up with any pushback? And the answer is no.
Are you?
Yeah.
Are you?
In
a weird twist, she's actually Andrew Rappaport.
Yeah, the recipe thing, the resume, send your resume off one way with a different name and the same resume, and one person gets a call back and the other person doesn't based on that name.
Oh yeah. I've done that on Facebook too.
I just had this image of of the Holy Spackle catfishing fundies.
Kind of, yeah.
Yeah. I was gonna say that's unfortunate. Is trying out for an it's too bad that everything can't be this way, but when somebody's trying out for a position in an orchestra, the way they do it now is that out like from behind, the people who are listening can't see them. But not only that, one of my friends told me, who had tried out for several orchestras, is that you had to take your shoes off as well. And I said, why do you have to take your shoes off? And he said, because you can hear high heels clicking across the floor. That they were judging people just on the musicality, they'd have to take their shoes off. So the person was male or female or what race they were or how old they were or anything like that. They were just judging on their musicality. Yeah. And unfortunately, you can't always do that in real life.
No. And it's funny to kind of mess with people's biases.
How can you tell race by the sound they make when they walk? I mean, I assume Drake C-steps everywhere he goes. So
yeah.
Yeah, no, you can just tell penis dragging across the floor.
Well, no, it's just one leg is heavier than the other because the penis is down that leg, pant leg, so you walk lopsided.
Oh man!
Turns out that all black men are actually one-legged.
That's not true. That's definitely if that was true, Antonio would have a wife. Anyway, so
it doesn't matter what that guy is packing.
Yeah, it really doesn't.
He's I'm gonna try to leave Antonio alone. He was actually pretty fair to me and True's hangout. He was pretty fair.
I ain't gonna leave him alone.
He's not.
If an artist could visually express what hatred would look like, that's his face.
Okay. He saw the video because I think G-Man was playing. Well, no, G-Man was playing it in True's hangout of my last guitar solo in the Pikachu outfit. So he says, I don't know how to take drag. Like 1 minute he seems like a cool guy you have a beer with, and the next, you want to punch him in the face. But I don't know what to make of this. Here he's in this Pikachu outfit with this guitar. I think he needs some bipolar medicine. Like that's a pretty fair assessment given the circumstances. So I think I think that's pretty fair. And of course, G-Man he chimes in. I don't think he has a GED. I'm like, what? What? Okay.
Your face is on a fucking billboard for a college.
Yeah, it's funny because I've shown that picture, but I might have to bring that back up. Antonio.
The thing is how I reacted to seeing you in the Pikachu outfit, which was I saw that and went, I want that outfit.
Yeah, if I can fit in it, you can.
Well, I actually have a bunny hug hoodie that's my avatar, so that when I duck my head down and zip it all the way up, I just look like that bear.
Oh, nice. Yeah, my mother-in-law bought it for me. Mrs. Dragnet, I think, has I think hers is Totodile or Mudkip. Hers might be Mudkip. I forget, but she has one too.
Because I don't know how the hell Totodile one would work.
I don't. Yeah, I think it is Mudkip, and the little one has something else. I forget which one he has, but she thought it was cute, and I had to tuck my junk in to take the family photo because that was awkward. So, yeah. So I do want to thank everybody for coming. I'm probably not going to be online for the next few days. If I need a break from the in-laws, I probably will just to breathe. I'm not sure about all the festivities that are going to be going on, but from what I understand, I think my parents come tomorrow, and my aunt, and then my in-laws come in a few days, yeah, something like that. So we'll see. But yeah, when they host hangouts with their, ignorant nonsense, you know what? I don't mind hosting a counter hangout to, let people express themselves how they see fit rather than throwing them into a box and condemning them to, whatever hell that they have conceived, and telling them that they don't deserve to be, a part of society, or they don't benefit society, because who you sleep with isn't a benefit or a detriment to society. That's ridiculous. It is the decisions you make as a person that will make you a benefit or a detriment to society, and that has very little to nothing to do with, loving a consenting adult. So hopefully some of them will get the best gift that many of them could get for Christmas, which is, I don't know, knowledge. Maybe some of them will learn nuance and understand complexity, what it actually is. And I don't know, read a book or two. That's my wish for the CCP for this Christmas. Learn something, you fuckers. If you don't like me and what I say, you could prove me wrong. Yeah, that's always an option. You could become smarter. That's definitely always an option. That's never off the table. Don't think that you can't become smarter. If you think that you're at the top of the pinnacle with your intellect, you're not. I'm here to tell you, you're not. So since I can shove my head further up my own ass than you guys can, I think I have a right to say that. So on that note, any last words, folks?
Well, yeah, can I just say, he who thinks he's a fool is not a great fool. Confucius.
Okay.
It's for the CCP.
Never
Anybody else?
argue with an asshole, because the person next to you don't know which one the asshole is.
That's true, actually.
Fair enough.
I would love to have a gay that can help me decorate my house.
Okay.
I
Try
think
Craigslist.
I think I've known a lot of forgiving homosexuals that have forgiven straight Christians for abusing them in some way, but I sometimes don't see as many heterosexual evangelicals forgiving in that same manner. So it's kind of interesting.
Maybe that's something they could work on as their New Year's resolution, being more forgiving. It'd be nice if there was some type of book with those types of lessons or tenets in there, kind of compiled into some type of belief system or something like that.
You mean something like treating others the way you would like to be treated yourself?
Yeah. That sounds pretty good.
That does sound pretty good. Yeah.
What kind of Marxist
look into
bullshit is that, Jade?
Clearly, she's a communist. Get her.
Get her.
All right. On that note, folks, we're going to go off air. I'm going to put the link out there if you want to hop in and chat. I'll be around for a while. I'm not going to sleep anytime soon. I'm waiting for Mrs. Dragnot to come home from my cousin's house, because she's over there probably drinking wine or something with my cousin's wife, and bring home my goddamn milkshake. So on that note, folks, thanks for watching. See ya.